Chapter 684. Outside the glutton god city. A frightening pressure spread out, and dark clouds shrouded the sky. The clothes on Chu Chongqing's upper body were torn apart. A golden bowl floated above his head, radiating dazzling golden light. That golden bowl floated and continuously poured energy into Chu Chongqing's body. The lines on his body moved like tadpoles. That gurgling sound made one's entire body go numb. A fist pounded and terrifying air waves shot out. The giant alligator roared. Its body spun, throwing Chu Chongqing away. Chu Chongqing steadied his body in the void. Scarlet gas diffused from his body. The golden bowl above his head continued to spin. Radiance fell like a curtain. This beast has thick skin. It's hard to deal with it. Chu Chongqing's eyes twinkled. His white beard fluttered in the wind. The guards on the city wall were shivering. Even the sixth elder had to take a deep breath. No matter how strong Chu Chongqing was, he still couldn't defeat that beast. It was really hard to deal with this. The green-toothed ancestral alligator's eyes were scarlet. Its giant claws pounded on the ground, making it shake. Although it was enraged, it didn't show any sign of attacking the city. It seemed to be waiting for something. What was it waiting for? Chu Chongqing and the others didn't know. However, Chu Chongqing didn't need to know. He knew that this beast wasn't waiting for anything good. Their fists collided. Chu Chongqing's eyes widened as he exhaled. His breath was like sword energy, tearing through the air and flying far away. The golden bowl was dazzling and the light curtain sprinkled. Chu Chongqing gathered the energy in his body. He was about to attack again. However, a moment later, a terrifying aura shot out from the glutton god city. The black air shot up into the sky and covered everything. Boom! Rumble! Chu Chongqing's heart shivered. He turned to look at the glutton god city. He saw a jet of black air soaring into the sky. Damn it! What's going on? Chu Chongqing's face changed dramatically. A bad premonition arose in his heart. Glutton God's building Square Bufang was startled in his heart. He turned his head to look and discovered that there was a black aura constantly surging out from the little lass beside him. The girl was still chewing the food in her mouth as she stared at the scattered food. His eyes seemed to be filled with anger. Calm down. Bufang seemed to have thought of something. With a serious expression, he slapped his palm on the top of the little girl's head. His real qi surged out and helped the little girl suppress the black qi on her body. That old man Chu Chongqing had told him not to expose the fact that the little girl had the soul of a Taotai in her body. Although Bufang didn't understand, he still felt that he should help. Qi. Bufang's true qi suppressed the black gas, causing it to make a sizzling sound, as if ice and snow were melting. The little lass's sinister face gradually calmed down. Xiao Yu was taken aback. When he turned to look at Zhang Xian, he noticed that something was amiss with the lass. What's wrong? Xiao Yu asked, his face extremely serious. If the Heavenly Spring Saint's son wanted to kill Owner Bu, he wouldn't be able to stop him with his current strength. Nothing, just the rage of a glutton. Bufang patted the little girl's head and said calmly. The rage of a glutton. Xiao Yu was speechless. He glanced at the little girl, who was staring at the scattered food, and the corners of his mouth twitched. The Heavenly Spring Saint's son's eyes were also bewildered when his attack failed. His figure emitted a booming sound as he constantly moved in the air, dodging all kinds of attack. His long black hair lashed out in the void, causing the void to crack. Under the gluttony god's building Yin Yu slowly stood up, the elegant smile on his face gradually disappearing. Netherworld creature! You dare to be presumptuous in my valley of gluttony! Die! He stomped his foot. Everybody felt the ground shake as if it was about to collapse. Yen Yu's figure soared up into the sky. Above his head, a 5-step soul ladder emerged. His terrifying cultivation base expanded as he attacked Yu, who was standing in front of the Netherworld ship. Yu's pitch-black eyes turned. Her long black hair billowed, turning into a giant hand that covered the sky. That huge hand streaked across the sky, slapping towards Yenyu. Yenyu shouted. The chef robe on his body fluttered, and a moment later, a kitchen knife appeared in the air. With a clanging sound, that kitchen knife was like a black shadow, as fast as lightning. With a tearing sound, it cut that giant hand into two halves. It's Special Chef Yan's shadow-chopping kitchen knife. When someone saw that scene, they instantly exclaimed. The shadow-chopping kitchen knife was ranked third in the Valley of Gluttony's ranking of kitchen knives. Its power was extremely terrifying. The speed of the knife was so fast that people couldn't catch it. It could cut shadows. Swoosh, swoosh. The kitchen knife spun in the air. In the next moment, Yenyu's figure appeared in front of you. He raised his hand, grabbing the kitchen knife. His murderous aura exploded. Just a netherworld creature. Entering my Valley of Gluttony, isn't that seeking death? Kill. The kitchen knife slashed horizontally, as fast as lightning. It was almost impossible to catch a trace of it. Yu's eyes were pitch black. Even the scara of her eyes was dyed black. She looked at the sharp knife energy slashing down, her hair fluttering. In the next moment there was a sharp whistle. Yu's white face suddenly tensed up, and those blue veins gathered in her eyes. That pitch-black color moved, becoming more and more terrifying. Scram! Tens of thousands of sharp whistles turned into an extremely ear-piercing roar. That roar seemed to have turned into something solid. Behind you, a giant shadow appeared. Puff! An incomparably terrifying power poured down and smashed into Yenyu's body. Yenyu's kitchen knife suddenly appeared. It was a knife that looked like a willow leaf. It froze in the air, and after being hit by the terrifying power, it was blown away. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Yenyu's figure fell hard on the ground. The ground caved in, and circles of cracks spread out. The entire audience cried out in surprise. Many people were startled by this scene. Special grade Chef Yenyu was blown away with one move, a great ethereal realm creature of the netherworld. Struggling to get out of the rubble, Yenyu's face was filled with disbelief. In the void, because of Yenyu's appearance, the Heavenly Spring Saint Sun finally found a chance to dodge the combined attack of the black hairs. He held the long halberd and swung it fiercely, sweeping the hairs away. His figure took a step forward and appeared above Xiao Yu and the others. Die. The Heavenly Spring Saint Sun said coldly. In the next moment the halberd swung down. Bufang's eyes shrank. His hand shook, and the black turtle constellation walk appeared. It expanded, shielding them. The halberd hit the black turtle constellation walk with terrifying true energy. Instantly, a deafening sound reverberated. It was like a giant bell being hit, booming unceasingly. The black turtle constellation walk fell from the sky and landed on the ground, making a loud noise. The celestial saintess frowned, looking at the black turtle constellation walk falling from the sky. She slowly stood up, trying to stop the Heavenly Spring Saint Sun, who was filled with murderous aura. On the high platform, the experts of the Grand Baron sect and the Pill Palace were speechless. Luo Danqing wanted to take action, but looking at the Heavenly Spring Saint Sun, who was covered in murderous aura, he sighed regretfully. What could he do even if he took action? The Heavenly Spring Saint Sun held the halberd horizontally, walking down from the sky. The gold armor on his body was shattered, but the golden crown was also broken by Yu. However, his murderous aura hadn't stopped. Great Void Realm. That's right. When you used all of her power, she was a Great Void Realm expert. Moreover, she was the strongest existence among the Great Void Realm expert. Ordinary netherworld creatures didn't even dare to step into the hidden dragon royal court. Anyway, the opponent was a Great Void Realm expert. However, even if it was a Great Void Realm expert, as soon as he stepped into the royal court's territory, someone would come to deal with him eventually. This Bufang had colluded with the netherworld creatures. There was something fishy going on. He had to be killed. The long halberd swept. The wind howled, and the oppressive power burst out. His entire body turned into a jet of light, dashing toward the black turtle constellation Wak. All of a sudden, the black turtle constellation Wak trembled. Then, it turned into black smoke, dispersing. However, as soon as the black smoke from the black turtle constellation Wak dispersed, a thicker black smoke arose from underneath. Bufang and Xiao Yu were both sent flying into the distance by a mysterious force. The two of them steadied themselves and looked at the little girl. Bufang wore a stern face, while Xiao Yu was bewildered. That terrifying power was actually surging out from the little girl's body. Roar! The black smoke congregated above the little girl's head, turning into a massive mouth that looked like it could swallow the entire world. A ferocious phantom of a giant beast emerged. Inside that phantom was the little girl with a ferocious face. Incomparably mysterious, pitch-black tadpole-like patterns danced on the little girl's body. The black gas spread, and the terrifying and oppressive pressure caused everyone's heart to tremble. Bufang exhaled deeply. This time, the pressure was much more intimidating than the last time. What was the Taotia's soul after all? The heavenly springs Saint's son was startled by the phantom of the giant beast. Where did another monster come from? Why were there monsters everywhere today? A moment later, the heavenly springs Saint's son's eyes focused. Murderous aura surged in his eyes. I don't care what kind of monster you are. Anyone who dares to stand against me will die. The long halberd shook, spinning, and the sharp energy diffused. A 5-step soul ladder emerged above his head with a dazzling star on it. Boom! That illusory giant beast let out a roar that made everyone's body tremble. A moment later, the phantom struck its claw. The claw aimed at the heavenly springs Saint's son. Thud! The heavenly springs Saint's son's long halberd and the black claw collided. Crack! The heavenly springs Saint's son's eyes widened. He was frightened. The long halberd was smashed by the claw, turning into pieces that scattered in the sky. His entire body was hit by the black smoke. He was pinched directly in the void. The heavenly springs Saint's son couldn't move. An ice-cold aura of death suddenly spread throughout his body. What kind of monster is that? The heavenly springs Saint's son was frightened. His face twisted. On the high platform that originally belonged to him, Chi-Ji trembled as she watched this scene. The invincible holy sun in her heart was actually captured by a monster. That terrifying mouth seemed to want to swallow everything. The monster's claw shook. Right after that, the heavenly springs Saint's son felt his body being tossed up. He wanted to run away. However, the phantom beast opened its mouth. It was as black as ink, a mouth that looked like a bottomless pit. Arg! Don't eat me! I'm the heavenly springs Saint's son. I'm the future of the heavenly spring holy land. The heavenly springs Saint's son could feel his body flying toward the black hole. His heart was pounding. He was frightened. He bared his fangs and claws, crying, begging for mercy. However, it was useless. Everybody gawked and dropped their jaws. The heavenly springs Saint's son was swallowed by the phantom beast. Chapter 685. One mouth could swallow the world, and the other one could swirl energy. The heavenly springs Saint's son was swallowed by the massive phantom. A black vortex was spinning in that mouth, which looked like it could swallow the entire sky. He couldn't resist at all. The heavenly springs Saint's son was sucked into the vortex that was like a black hole. The terrifying tearing force burst out. The heavenly springs Saint's son's golden armor cracked even more. His clothes were shredded into powder. Boom! 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 The heavenly springs Saint's son screamed in fear. He was swallowed, leaving no sound. After the phantom beast had swallowed the heavenly springs Saint's son, it closed its mouth. The entire place quieted down. Everybody was bewildered, looking at the phantom beast. The heavenly springs Saint's son was swallowed just like that? The Saint's son of a holy land, an extremely arrogant existence, was eaten in one bite. Not even his bones were left. Everyone felt a chill surging over them as their bodies stiffened. That little girl had turned into a giant beast. It was so terrifying that it was beyond their imagination. At first, they thought that the little girl could only eat a lot. Now, it seemed like she could eat anything. Xiao Yu looked at this scene with a dumbfounded expression. He sat down on the big sword, and his whole body slightly trembled. Was that still the cute little girl? How could she turn into a giant, primitive beast in just a blink? She had swallowed a saint's son of a holy land in just one bite. Everything happened so fast that he couldn't react in time. After the initial silence, the gluttony god's building burst into a clamor. The heavenly spring saint's son died in the valley of gluttony. Oh my god. I'm afraid something big is about to happen. Qi Ji was completely dumbfounded. She knelt on the high platform and stared blankly at the holy sun being devoured by the terrifying and malevolent beast made of black gas. What kind of monster was that? Inside the black smoke, the little girl's body was faintly discernible. Strange symbols were moving on her body. She opened her mouth, her face ferocious. It was obvious that the little girl was in great pain. A jet of black smoke shot out from the giant beast, shooting up into the sky. With a loud rumble, it pierced into the clouds, causing a whirlpool of black qi to appear in the sky. Outside the glutton god city, Chu Changxing's face changed dramatically. He looked at the light beam shooting up into the sky. Sensing the terrifying energy in that light beam, his face grimaced. The soul of Taotai. How come it has awakened again? And this time, it's actually so terrifying. The sixth elder raised his head and his pupils shrank. He seemed to have thought of something, and his entire body seemed to be drenched in cold sweat. Roar! The green Fang ancestral alligator's lantern-like eyes saw the black light beam and sensed the energy diffusing from it. It immediately let out a roar, and the aura on its body underwent a huge change. If it could be said that it was peaceful before, then it was extremely violent now. The ancestral alligator's claws pounded on the ground. Its body rose up, storming towards the glutton god city. As expected, that bastard is waiting for the Taotia's soul. Chu Changxing's face changed. He held the golden bowl in one hand and flew toward the ancestral alligator. Stop right there, you bastard! Shouting, Chu Changxing's aura rocketed. However, what he got in response was the ancestral alligator's steel whip-like tail. With a loud rumble, its tail swept over. Chu Changxing's eyes widened. His body slightly bulged, and the patterns on his body moved. A moment later, he rose his hand and the golden bowl turned into a jet of gold light, hitting the ancestral alligator's tail as fast as lightning. Thud! The ancestral alligator's tail was blown away, sending sparks everywhere. The ancestral alligator was enraged. Its eyes turned scarlet, and it opened its big, sharp mouth, aiming to bite Chu Changxing on the city wall. You want to covet the Taotia's soul? You're just a beast. Chu Changxing twisted his neck, his face cold. He stomped on the city wall, and his body shot up like a cannonball. His speed became faster and faster. He punched. Tens of thousands of heaven and earth spirit energy gathered, fusing with the pressure of heaven and earth, turning into a giant fist that pounded on the ancestral alligator's gaping mouth. The ancestral alligator was blown away, its entire body leaning backward. Boom! Boom! Jets of light flashed. Under Chu Changxing's continuous attacks, the ancestral alligator looked like a sandbag as big as a small mountain in the void. Eventually, Chu Changxing grabbed the ancestral alligator's tail, pounding it on the ground and dragging it toward the sunset lake. The ancestral alligator's giant body was dragged on the ground. Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, Chu Changxing's face changed one more time in the void. He turned his head to look around the glutton god city. Thin beams of light shot into the sky from all directions. The beams of light were multicolored, and there were all kinds of colors. It seemed like they were responding to the black light column. Damn! Those old fogies have woken up. Chu Changxing's face paled. He sped up, dragging the ancestral alligator toward the Sunset Lake. Shortly, they reached the Sunset Lake. The lakeside was a mess. Many trees were broken, as if they had been destroyed. Chu Changxing's face darkened. The ancestral alligator opened its mouth, looking at him with a ferocious face. Chu Changxing's hand shook, and the golden bowl enlarged. He grabbed it with one hand and smashed it. Boom! The Sunset Lake shook, ripples spreading out in circles. If it weren't for your thick skin, I would have to spend several days and nights to skin you alive. Chu Changxing smashed the bowl, snorting coldly. It seemed he wasn't in a good mood, so he smashed the bowl several more times. The ancestral alligator was bewildered, lying still. Blue veins bulged on Chu Changxing's forehead. A moment later, he flung the ancestral alligator. The mountain-like ancestral alligator was flung up. It spun several times in the air. It was like a bomb exploding. Water splashed up into the sky. The waves expanded furiously. The tranquil Sunset Lake became noisy in just a blink of an eye. The ancestral alligator struggled for a while in the water. It wanted to get out of the water one more time. Its eyes gazed at the black smoke, its red eyes filled with desire. Unfortunately, Chu Changxing threw another bowl, hitting the ancestral alligator's head. The beast slowly dived into the water. Then, with a grumble, it bubbled. Chu Changxing roared. He clasped his hands, throwing a jade talisman into the lake. An invisible layer of energy diffused, sealing the ancestral alligator. Boom! The lake water splashed. The ancestral alligator's giant body got out of the water, opening its mouth to bite Chu Changxing. However, the ancestral alligator's head hit the light curtain. It couldn't get out of the seal. Be good and stay here. Chu Changxing indifferently glanced at the ancestral alligator. His hand shook and a loose robe fluttered. He put it on, then strode toward the glutton god city. His face was extremely dark and gloomy. Sounds of people tearing through the air arose. A moment later, many experts dashed toward the glutton god city from all directions. Those old fogies! They found the soul of Taotai. On the city wall of the glutton god's tower, the sixth elder looked at Chu Changxing, who was walking in the air with his long robe fluttering in the wind. However, the joy on his face hadn't faded yet. He saw many figures dashing toward him from a distance. Seeing them, his face changed. Second elder, third elder, fourth elder, fifth elder. They were 4 figures with cold faces. Their auras were vigorous, and their terrifying pressure expanded unceasingly. The 4 of them landed on the city wall, their faces cold and arrogant. The sixth elder's eyes were cold. They weren't like the local elders of the Valley of Gluttony. They were sent by the big forces of the royal court to be the claws and teeth of the Valley of Gluttony. Moreover, they were the extremely powerful claws and teeth. Their goal was to control the Valley of Gluttony. Long time no see. Great Elder, you're still so intimidating, said an old man with his hair combed back, smiling at Chu Changxing. He was the second elder of the Valley of Gluttony. The other elders laughed as well. Each of them had their own ulterior motives. However, they all had one thing in common. When they looked at the black light, their eyes were filled with excitement. Apparently, they had been waiting for this black light for a long time. The red-faced third elder squinted. The soul of Taotai. We've been looking for it for a long time. Finally, we found it. The darkness in Nethery's eyes faded away, and she became charming again. She curiously looked at the little girl who had turned into a giant beast from the great desolate Aeon. Bufang took a deep breath. He knew the situation was serious. Chu Changxing had told him not to let the little girl burst out. However, he couldn't control it. A porcelain jar appeared in his hand. It was the one Chu Changxing had given him. With a stern face, Bufang took a step forward. His body soared into the sky, hovering in front of the Taotai. The little girl's body twisted inside the Taotia's stomach. Blood oozed from her nose and mouth. As the blood seeped into her body, the Taotai became more obvious. Bufang opened the lid of the wine jar with one hand and expressionlessly flicked his hand. The wine jar flew toward the giant beast with a clatter. What was Bufang doing? Many people took a deep breath when they saw Bufang's action. They thought that Bufang was courting death. He didn't know what was good for him. That giant beast was enraged. It could swallow the heavenly springs saint's son. You're just a little chef. What can you do? Didn't you just swallow him in one bite? Many people could imagine what would happen to Bufang. The Taotai opened its mouth. The black hole in its mouth moved. Suddenly, it opened and a terrifying suction force burst out. Bufang wore a stern face. Looking at the jar of wine that had been thrown away, he slowly raised his hand. Boundless mental energy surged out, as if it had turned into a meandering divine dragon. The Taotai roared. Bufang's eyes shrank. His mental energy moved, and the jar of wine exploded instantly. Boom! The fragments of the wine jar scattered in all directions, but the turbid yellow wine inside was scattered, like a curtain of rain covering the Taotai. Chapter 686. Bufang's actions shocked everyone. What was he doing? Pouring the wine on the beast? At this moment, many people had recognized the beast. However, because they recognized it, they were even more frightened. The Valley of Gluttony was called the Valley of Gluttony because of the Taotai, a legendary spirit beast. Once it appeared, it was a terrifying existence that could destroy an area. In the legends of the Valley of Gluttony, the Taotai was divided into black and white. There was a black Taotai and a white Taotai. In the legends, the black Taotai was killed in the battle with the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony. The white Taotai was sealed by many experts and suppressed at the bottom of the Sunset Lake, turning the Sunset Lake into a fertile land where the Glutton God City was built. The ingredients in the Valley of Gluttony were nourished by the white Taotia's essence and spirit energy. Many spirit beasts had delicious meat because they drank the water of the Sunset Lake and received its water. The little girl in front of them emitted a terrifying black energy that seemed to swallow the heaven and earth. It reminded many people of the legends. Every household in the Valley of Gluttony would have a carving of the white Taotai. They would worship it every year to pray for good weather. The black Taotai and the white Taotai didn't have much difference in appearance. Therefore, people could recognize the beast in front of them. It was the Taotai. Bufang walked in the air, his mental energy surging. His hair fluttered, but his face was expressionless. The wine jar cracked, and countless drops of wine poured out, turning into a curtain of rain that covered the soul of the Taotai. Sizzle! 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 Black smoke rose in an instant. The moment the soul-restraining wine touched the body of the black beast, it seemed to corrode. The surging black energy melted, making sizzling sounds. Roar! The little girl's eyes turned black, and the wrinkles on her face jumped. Her body twisted strangely, and her mouth opened into a horrifying arc. She roared at Bufang. That roar caused the black energy to surge. It opened its mouth, and the vortex in its mouth was like a black hole aiming at Bufang. It wanted to swallow Bufang. Everyone's face changed. Bufang furrowed his brows. Was it useless? Indeed. Chu Changsheng's gift wasn't reliable at all. Bufang's hand shook, and black energy filled the air. Suddenly, the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. Filled with true energy, the dragon bone kitchen knife emitted a dazzling golden light. A dragon's roar resounded and soared into the sky. The dragon's roar and the Taotia's roar intertwined. The Taotai was slightly stunned. Bufang held the knife with one hand. With a flip of his hand, dishes that he had prepared were thrown out, floating around him. These delicacies floated in the air, emitting dense heat, fragrance, and spiritual energy. These gases interweaved together, forming a mysterious formation. As the gourmet array spun, energy constantly gathered in Bufang's body. Soon, Bufang felt full of energy. He slashed 7 times in a row. The saber light surged and the saber light shone brightly. The saber energy became stronger and more surging. Yu's crystal clear feet touched the ground. Her body floated up, appearing by Bufang. The soul of a formidable spirit beast is sealed in this little girl's body, Yu said coldly. After slashing the Overlord's seventh blade, Bufang felt his true energy was a little empty. He exhaled gently, shouldering the dragon bone kitchen knife. He turned to look at Yu. Do you have any way to suppress the Taotia's soul? Asked Bufang. Yu floated in the air. Her black hair rippled, and her long black dress fluttered. She shook her head slightly. I'm not strong enough. I can't do it. If you're here, I think you can do it. Blackie? The corners of Bufang's mouth rose. If the Lord Go were here, it would be simple. With a paw, the Taotia's soul would be smashed. However, Blackie wasn't here, so it was useless to say more. Let's dodge first. Yu's face was cold. She lifted her wrist, placing it on Bufang's shoulder. Black smoke expanded. The two of them disappeared from their spots. When they reappeared, they were on the Netherworld ship. Rumble! Rumble! 7 saber energy blades landed on the Taotai. The Taotai opened its mouth. The black hole spun, and the saber energy entered the black hole. Ice melted like snow. The black smoke released by the soul-restraining wine stopped. Xiaoya, who was enraged, almost turned black. The densely packed black lines covered her skin, causing her skin to turn black. Roar! A long howl rang out, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Yenyu was scared out of his wits. He had seen the Heavenly Springs Saint's son get swallowed. He was so scared that he didn't have the guts to deal with that monster. Moreover, that monster was a Taotai. Yenyu was instinctively afraid of the Taotai. The Heavenly Secret Saintess's white dress fluttered. She floated and landed in the distance, looking at the Taotai with caution and surprise. Lianqing stood on the high platform like an elegant young master, looking at the Taotia's soul in awe. The Gluttony Gods building had turned into a pot of porridge. Everybody was running away in a panic. The Taotai had appeared. Of course, they had to run away. If they didn't run, would they just wait for death? The legendary First Valley Master was peerless in his generation. He was like a god, but he was hurt badly in the battle with the Taotai. How could they deal with the giant beast in front of them? Didn't they see the Heavenly Springs Saint's son get swallowed in one bite? Bufang stood on the Netherworld ship, looking at the Taotai that was becoming more and more real. It looked like a real giant beast. He couldn't help but frown. So many intimidating auras over there. Yu turned her head, looking at the distance. It was the direction of the Glutton God City's city wall, where Chu Chongqing had left. Did Chu Chongqing come back? Air-tearing noises arose. Several jets of light zoomed over. After the light dispersed, the figures of old men with sage-like auras were revealed. After those figures had arrived, Chu Chongqing, wearing a loose robe, strode over. His face was extremely dark. As soon as he arrived at the Gluttony Gods building, he saw the Taotai that was about to materialize. Chu Chongqing's face changed several times. It's in this state now. What happened? Chu Chongqing's eyes were sharp, raking through the crowd. Eventually, his gaze stopped at Bufang. Did you use the soul-restraining wine I gave you? Asked Chu Chongqing. Bufang shouldered the dragon bone kitchen knife, squinting at Chu Chongqing. The latter's tone made Bufang uncomfortable. The stuff you gave me is useless, replied Bufang indifferently. Bufang calmly replied. After replying, he turned his head to look at the little girl who had transformed into a black Taotai. Chu Chongqing's white beard fluttered, his face dark and gloomy. He looked at the old men next to him, who all looked greedy. This made his expression even more unsightly. It's the Taotia's soul. After searching for so long, I finally found it. Ah! Finally, I can leave this valley of gluttony. After I find the Taotia's soul, I can return to the Wavering Light Holy Land. As long as I can get the Taotia's soul and return to the rising sun Holy Land, the Saint Sovereign will give me a big reward. The eyes of those old men were so hot. Except for Chu Chongsheng and the sixth elder, these elders were the 7 great sage of the hidden dragon royal court, who had placed them in the Valley of Gluttony. They had always wanted the Taotia's soul. If one party got it, a Saint Sovereign could fuse with the Taotia's soul and get the Taotia's power and supernatural abilities. That would be extremely terrifying, and the structure of the hidden dragon royal court would be broken. The hidden dragon royal court had always been the territory of the 7 great sage. They were arranged according to the Big Dipper, and each of them reflected a star. The heavenly spring, heavenly secret, Dubhe, and mysterious heavenly were called the royal court's 4 sacred heavens. The wavering light, rising sun, and ancient jade were called the royal court's 3 mansion heavens. The 4 great sage of the 4 sacred heavens had a good relationship, and the 3 great sage of the 3 mansion heavens also had a good relationship. However, the 3 mansion heavens and the 4 sacred heavens had a competitive relationship, which divided the structure of the royal court. Once one party got the Taotia's soul, it would break the structure that had been there for a long time. At that time, the flames of war would rise to the sky. The Valley of Gluttony used to be in existence that wasn't weaker than the 4 sacred heavens and the 3 mansion heavens. However, as time flew, the number of experts in the Valley of Gluttony dwindled. It couldn't even be compared to a Holy Land. The Taotia's soul had always been hidden in the Valley of Gluttony. It was also something that many Holy Lands coveted. Chu Chongsheng, you old fool, how long do you want to hide the Taotia's soul? Isn't it out now? The red-faced old man's face was filled with excitement. His body trembled, and a terrifying aura instantly spread out. A soul ladder appeared above his head. The soul ladder soared to the sky, and there was a dazzling star shining on it. Boom! The void trembled. The red-faced old man's figure appeared in front of the black Taotai. He slapped down with his palm. Thousands of energy gathered, turning into a palm. That palm was covered in fine lines. The little girl's figure inside the Taotia's stomach was faintly discernible. Her entire body was twisted in a strange way. She opened her mouth and roared. The Taotai also opened its mouth and roared. The roar turned into a black shockwave, smashing toward the red-faced old man. Boom! 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 The terrifying collision exploded in the sky. The light was as bright as day. Smoke and dust filled the air. A figure suddenly appeared. The Taotai stretched out its claw, grabbed the old man, and dashed out. Boom! The Taotai grabbed the red-faced old man and slammed into the Gluttony Gods building. Buzz, a buzzing sound reverberated. A formation descended from the Gluttony Gods building. Blue light rippled, saving the Gluttony Gods building. The old man was pressed against the wall. His eyes widened. The Taotai roared and punched out. It smashed into the old man's body. The old man was almost smashed. The formation of the Gluttony Gods building shook again. The Taotai grabbed the old man and flung him. The old man was sent flying, smashing through several high platforms. He flew toward the netherworld ship. Yu's hair fluttered. She raised her palm. However, Bufang pressed her down. "Let me," Bufang said casually. Yu was a netherworld creature. Once she made a move, the nether energy would erupt. Those people might find out. At that time, it would attract unnecessary trouble. Bufang took a step, standing on the bow of the netherworld ship. Yu was puzzled. She looked at Bufang with an expressionless face. Gently exhaling, Bufang took out a velvet rope and tied his hair. The black energy in his hand expanded. The dragon bone kitchen knife disappeared, and the black turtle constellation walk appeared. True energy was abundant. The black turtle constellation walk instantly shone with a golden light. Bufang held it with one hand. The red-faced old man's body was smashed by the Taotai. He flew toward the netherworld ship. He was not dead yet. Opening his eyes, he saw a young chef holding a wok on the black ship, looking at him with an expressionless face. What the hell? The old man was a little bewildered. A moment later, he saw that the young chef was waving the black wok at him. Boom! The old man's face and the black turtle constellation wok collided. Tears rolled down his cheeks. His face, which was not smashed by the Taotia's punch, was almost smashed by the wok. Blood spurted from his mouth. He changed his angle, smashing hard on the ground. With a rumbling sound, a deep pit was formed in the ground. Bufang maintained his wok movement, gently exhaling. Home run. Perfect. In the void, many experts, including Chu Chongqing, were dumbstruck as they watched the scene. Chapter 687. What AF * King Home Run. That little chef had used his wok to send that Holy Land expert flying. Was he crazy? Wasn't he afraid that the Holy Land expert would crawl up and find him for revenge? Chu Chongqing and the others wore strange faces. No one had thought that the little chef would suddenly take action. The most important thing was, he had used a wok to send that Holy Land expert flying. They could even clearly see that when the black wok and the old man's face collided, the old man's twisted face and his broken teeth flew out. Bufang held the black turtle constellation wok, which had a golden halo moving around it. His hair fluttered as he indifferently looked into the distance. The crushed rocks on the ground swirled. Instantly, a figure jumped up from the rubble. That figure's body was tattered, and his head was even dented. He crawled up from the rubble, his body swaying. He lifted his head, grinning as he looked at Bufang, who was standing on the Netherworld ship. "Kid, did you use your wok to hit me?" The old man's eyes were filled with rage as he spoke coldly. In front of the Netherworld ship, Bufang stood. His eyes were indifferent, and his face was emotionless. He didn't even bother to lift his mouth. He didn't answer the old man's question. Boom! An ear-piercing roar arose. A black shadow dashed down as fast as lightning. Just as the old man stabilized his body, he was instantly blasted away by the black shadow. With a loud bang, he was sent flying again, smashing the ground and causing it to crack. The Taotai descended, and its claw slapped down. Terrifying energy instantly gathered, and its power exploded. The old man dashed out from the rubble one more time. True energy surged from his body. Step by step, he soared into the air. A long sword appeared in his hand, and the blade of the sword was made of glass. The sword stabbed out, releasing thousands of rays of light as if it wanted to tear a person's body into pieces. This ray of sword light headed straight for the Taotai. It's the Wavering Light Holy Land's Wavering Light sword energy. An expert took a deep breath. However, a moment later, something happened that made them suck in a breath of cold air. The Taotai faced the terrifying sword and the devastating sword energy. It opened its mouth, and a vortex like a black hole spun in its mouth. Countless beams of sword energy were absorbed by the black hole, dispersing. It's this black hole. That black hole ate the heavenly spring Saint Sun. Someone cried out in alarm, his face full of fear, his legs trembling. Chu Chongqing and the others were bewildered. The heavenly spring Saint Sun was eaten? Swallowed by the black hole? That would mean certain death. Any living being that was sucked into the black hole would be instantly disintegrated. That black hole was the Taotia's strongest technique. Taotia's body became more and more solid, and the figure of the little girl was almost completely invisible. Chu Chongqing and the others also knew how serious this matter was. If they waited until the Taotia's soul completely woke up, it wouldn't be easy to deal with it. At that time, unless a divine spirit realm expert made a move, otherwise, no one would be a match for Taotai. Roar! The Taotai roared, and a terrifying and oppressive aura spread out. The crushed rocks on the ground were shattered by this pressure. Everyone, let's attack. We can't let this beast break free from the seal. Chu Chongqing's face was stern. A moment later, the long robe on his body tore apart. He took a step forward, and his body dashed forward like a dragon. His speed was as fast as lightning. Rumbling sounds echoed. A dazzling golden bowl emerged, pounding on the Taotai. The other old men also took action. In just a blink of an eye, formidable true energy surged, shooting up into the sky. Soul ladders emerged above the heads of those old men. Those old men had a 6-step soul ladder, which was really intimidating. Moreover, a star shone above their heads, showering them with starlight to increase their power. It was the support of the star power of the 3 heavenly palaces. A giant axe swung with earth-shaking power. A machete swept horizontally, blade energy crisscrossing. Those experts were the experts of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court, and their fighting competence was really formidable. As they were sent to the Valley of Gluttony to be the elders, of course, they had the competence. Without competence, those experts couldn't have a seat in the Valley of Gluttony, which was led by Chu Chongsheng. Many experts attacked at the same time. Different kinds of energy rippled like a light net, attacking the Taotai. The Taotai had almost materialized. Its ferocious claws patted the ground, cracking it. Its mouth opened wide, and countless beams of energy gathered in front of its mouth. Different colors of energy congregated. Shortly after, it turned into an energy ball that rumbled unceasingly. Boom! The energy ball shot out, aiming at Chu Chongsheng and the others. Boom! 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 Unceasingly, explosions occurred. Terrifying waves of air rolled in the sky. Many people quickly retreated, staying away from the center of the battle. This level of battle had made it hard for many people to endure. Bufang and Yu stood in front of the Netherworld ship. The Netherworld ship emitted waves of energy, which blocked the incoming energy. Congratulations to the host for completing the temporary task. Do you want to return? While Bufang was watching the battle below, the serious voice of the system arose in his head. This voice made Bufang a little bewildered. Return? So he had already completed his temporary mission? However, the battle down there hadn't ended yet. He didn't know what would happen to Xiaoya. Thus, he wasn't in a hurry to return. He rejected the system's request to return. After being rejected by Bufang, the system didn't say anything else. Meanwhile, the battle down there became fiercer. Terrifying explosions reverberated unceasingly. Fortunately, the Glutton Gods building was protected by a powerful formation. That was why those attacks couldn't destroy the Glutton Gods building. From a distance, many experts were watching in awe. The Grand Baron Sek's Sect Master, the Wind and Thunder Pavilion's Pavilion Master, and the others were silent. This level of battle wasn't something they could join. Boom! Suddenly, a figure was sent flying from the place where they had exchanged blows. The figure shot out explosively and smashed heavily into the ground, plowing a trench in the ground. That expert's blood and energy surged crazily, his face ashen. He lifted the weapon in his hand to check. He didn't know when his weapon had been chipped. The Taotai went berserk, sending experts flying out one after another, crashing onto the ground outside. Only Chu Chongsheng was still waving his golden bowl, fighting a bloody battle. At this moment, the monster had completely turned into a Taotai, and its fighting power was getting stronger. Chu Chongsheng felt a terrifying pressure, which made it hard for him to endure. The others were dumbstruck. So many Divine Soul Realm experts with a 5-step soul ladder couldn't defeat this monster. It should be known that this monster was the transformation of that foodie girl. Boom! Chu Chongsheng's golden bowl resisted the Taotia's claw. He was pressed against the wall, his white hair fluttering in the wind. The Taotai opened its mouth, gathering energy and aiming at Chu Chongsheng's head. If this attack hit, let alone Chu Chongsheng, even the defensive formation of the Glutton Gods building behind him would be smashed. Chu Chongsheng also felt the danger. His eyes shot out a dazzling light, and the mark on his forehead seemed to jump. In just a blink of an eye, it had spread to his entire body. His eyes turned white, and a blade light flashed. Instantly, the Taotia's claw that was pressing him was flung away. Chu Chongsheng kicked Taotia's stomach, sending it away. The cannonballs that had gathered in the Taoya's mouth shot out, hitting a high platform in the distance. The experts there didn't have time to dodge. The cannonballs hit them, turning them into ashes. The Taotai screeched. Its severed arm slowly wiggled, and a new arm grew out. Chu Chongqing's eyes glowed with a white light. He held a domineering kitchen knife in his hand. That kitchen knife was a semicircle without a handle. It had a circle in the middle, which was tied with a piece of cloth. It looked really strange. However, that kitchen knife was so sharp that it chopped off the Taoya's arm with one slash. Sunset Lake. Outside the glutton god city, the calm lake water began to churn again, as if it was boiling. A moment later, the lake water splashed. A mountain-like figure soared up from the lake one more time. The water splashed. The ancestral alligator's condition wasn't right. Its eyes had turned white, which was dazzling. It was totally different from its previous blood-red eyes. A small white beast hovered above the ancestral alligator's head. That white beast was made of light dots. Apparently, it wasn't a real entity. The little beast hovered above the ancestral alligator's head, looking at the glutton god city. It opened its mouth, where a white vortex was moving. A strange sound rippled out. The ancestral alligator seemed to understand it. It slowly swam toward the lake shore. Crack! When it touched the seal Chu Chongqing had set up, the little white beast shot a white cannonball from its mouth. The formation was smashed. The ancestral alligator continued to swim. Shortly, it returned to the shore. Chapter 688. This Taotai isn't at its peak, but it's so tough to deal with. Worthy of being the legendary spirit beast. The rocks in the ruins tumbled as an old man flipped himself up. His chest was dyed with blood, and fresh blood continuously flowed out from it. A flame ignited in his hand as he pressed it against his chest, causing the flesh and blood at that spot to coagulate. He lifted his head and glared at Yi Futian with a fierce look in his eyes. There, Chu Chongqing and Taotai were fighting fiercely. Chu Chongqing held a mysterious kitchen knife in his hand, swinging it unceasingly. Every time the knife swung, it created terrifying energy waves. Saber chi crisscrossed, slashing at the Taoya's body from time to time, tearing open wounds. There was even one time when Taoya's abdomen was cut so big that even the origin of the seal could be seen. The little girl opened her mouth, roaring. The cut on Taoya's abdomen healed. But, the stronger it is, the better. The stronger it is, the more valuable Taotai is. The old man grinned. Blood dripped from his mouth, and he used his hand to catch it. A moment later, he used his blood-soaked hand to draw something on his arm. His hand was filled with blood as he drew a ferocious drawing. After drawing the drawing, the old man's hand shook, and a jade talisman emerged. He crushed the jade talisman, and abundant energy gushed out of it, absorbed by the drawing on his arm. Roar! The old man's clothes exploded. A moment later, he roared angrily. His arms were like burning charcoal, with a hint of gold in the redness. He pounded his fists together, sending sparks everywhere. Taking a step forward, he soared up, aiming at the Taotai in the sky. The 6-step soul ladder appeared above his head once again, and a star shone on it. The air seemed to become scorching hot at this moment. His punch seemed to push out a sea of fire. Chu Chongqing sensed the old man's attack. His body moved as if he had teleported. In just a blink of an eye, he reappeared far away. His incandescent eyes were so stern. The rising sun Holy Land's fiery sun punch? Chu Chongqing mumbled. The hidden dragon royal court's great sages' lands were all holy lands of martial arts. They had their own martial arts that had been passed down from generation to generation. They even had combat skills that they were good at. For example, the Rising Sun Sacred Ground specialized in fist and leg techniques, including the Blazing Sun Fist, Heaven-Splitting Kick, and so on. For example, the Heavenly Secret Holy Land was an expert in spells and divination technique. This Holy Land was the most mysterious Holy Land in the hidden Dragon Royal Court. The Blazing Sun Fist. Don't be fooled by its unsophisticated name. Its power was extremely frightening. Both fists burned like the sun. Each punch was like a miniature sun, burning and exploding everything. Boom, boom, boom. Rings of golden fist shadows were smashed towards the Taotai, and the Taoya's body was blasted into the ground in an instant. The old man's aura surged like a river of stars as he soared into the sky. In the next moment, he threw a punch towards the ground. There was a loud bang. Shock waves rolled out, and the entire ground seemed to be overturned. The flames burned and the heat spread. The old man knelt on one knee in the deep pit, gasping for breath. He looked a little exhausted. He swayed as he stood up, coughing up blood once more. His entire person was a little weaker, but the corners of his mouth still curled up, revealing an excited expression. The Taotai is just SOSO. Chu Chongqing hovered in the sky, holding the kitchen knife with one hand. However, his face didn't relax at all. How could the Taotai be defeated that easily? Indeed. In the next moment, everybody's face changed. They saw the pit under the old man's feet suddenly crack. A pitch-black arm stretched out, grabbing the old man's head. The old man's entire body shivered, and his eyes revealed a trace of fear. How could it be? How could he not die after eating the full set of the Blazing Sun Fist? Boom! The ground exploded, and a black shadow instantly dashed out. It was the ferocious black Taotai. The Taoya's body was full of holes, as if it had been burned. Those wounds were slowly healing. The Taotai that came out of the ground was extremely ferocious. It opened its mouth, and the black hole in its mouth moved. It grabbed the old man and shoved him into its mouth. The old man's miserable howl hadn't disappeared when the Taotai bit him into pieces. His body was crushed by the black hole and sucked into it. Dead. Dead, the old man at the divine soul realm with a 6-step soul ladder was bitten to death, just like that. A terrifying aura spread out. The Taotai suddenly went crazy. His mouth opened wide and became bigger and bigger. A terrifying suction force burst out from his mouth. A red light flashed in its eyes. A moment later, the Taoya's body disappeared as fast as lightning. In just a blink of an eye, it reappeared in front of Chu Chongqing. Chu Chongqing roared. His incandescent eyes surged with ferocity as he fought with the Taotai. However, shortly after, the Taotai pounded Chu Chongqing into the ground. Everyone was silent. They were speechless. Looking at the Taotai that was getting more and more ferocious, they felt a wave of fear. That was the legendary spirit beast. So terrifying. If even the great elder was no match for it, who else would be able to stop this terrifying spirit beast? All of a sudden, everybody was startled. A moment later, they turned to look in the direction of the glutton god city. Boom! Boom! The ancestral alligator's giant body crushed over. Many guards on the city wall were frightened, their bodies shivering. Why? Why did that monster come out again? Wasn't it sealed and suppressed by the great elder? Quick! Look at that monster's head. What's that thing? Arg! The guards' hearts were shivering. This time, the ancestral alligator didn't linger in front of the city. It headed directly to the city wall, its giant claw pounding on the city wall. The entire city wall shook. The guards on the city wall were so scared that they peed their pants. The steel-like tail swept over and ruthlessly smashed into the city wall. Many guards were directly smashed by this attack, and their bodies exploded, turning into a vigorous blood mist. Roar! The ancestral alligator opened its mouth full of sharp fangs, roaring. Its eyes turned white with a strange light moving in them. The little white beast, who was quietly sitting on its head, lifted its head, looking at the distance. It opened its mouth, and a white vortex spun in its mouth. A white light ball was congregated. Buzz! The white light ball shot out, pounding on the city wall. The impregnable city wall collapsed in just a blink of an eye. The defensive formation on the wall was also broken. The ancestral alligator stormed into the gluttony god city like a hot knife cutting through butter. Rumble! Rumble! The ancestral alligator's body swayed fast. Its four limbs moved as it followed the little white beast's instructions, dashing toward the gluttony god's building. The people who had just escaped from the gluttony god's building saw the giant mouth, which was like a small mountain, pouncing on the gluttony god's building. Everybody's eyes were filled with fear. Why was there another monster? The ancestral alligator was in front, and the Tautai was behind. At this moment, many people felt a wave of despair. Some of them even closed their eyes, waiting for death. However, after waiting for a while, they found that the ancestral alligator didn't care about them. Besides some unlucky ones who got stomped to death, the others were safe. They exhaled in relief, but at the same time, they ran away in a panic. Of course, many experts were hovering around the gluttony god's building, watching the battle in fear. The appearance of the ancestral alligator naturally made them suck in a breath of cold air. Many experts from different forces were even more frightened. Regardless of whether it was the ancestral alligator or the Tautai, the appearance of such a ferocious beast would be a disaster for any force. Could it be that the Valley of Gluttony would be destroyed by two spirit beasts today? The ancestral alligator stopped moving, and its giant body climbed up, lying on the gluttony god's building. The gluttony god's building glowed brightly, and the energy of the formation fell down, barely protecting the gluttony god's building. The black Tautai went crazy. In its mouth, a black hole spun, swallowing many things. Many experts who couldn't escape in time were sucked in, and their bodies were easily torn into pieces by the black hole. Chu Chongqing stood up from the rubble. Boom! The black Taotia's claw slammed down. The netherworld ship hovered in the sky, looking down at the battle below. Bu Fong and Yu watched from above, and their eyes were solemn. Suddenly, Yu and Bu Fong frowned, and they turned their heads to look not far away. There, the ancestral alligator's giant body was lying on the gluttony god's building. "It's the Sunset Lake's giant alligator," Bu Fong said. On top of the giant alligator's head, Bu Fong saw a white, jade-like little beast. That little beast was quite cute, and its appearance was somewhat similar to the black Tautai. "What was that?" "That little beast is extraordinary," Yu said solemnly. Suddenly their pupils constricted, because they realized that the white little beast on top of the ancestral alligator's head had disappeared. When it reappeared, it was hovering in front of the black Tautai. A big black Tautai and a small white Tautai, the two were facing each other in the sky. The big eyes stared at the small eyes. The ancestral alligator was lying on top of the gluttony god's building, staring with its bell-like eyes. Chu Chongqing's white hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked a little embarrassed as he floated in the distance. Suddenly, Bu Fong and the others felt their hearts tremble, because they realized that the white little beast was facing the black Tautai with its mouth wide open. Boom! White spots of light gathered in front of the white little beast's mouth, and in the next moment, the white ball of light turned into a beam of light, smashing onto the black Taotia's body. With a loud bang, the black Tautai was smashed onto the ground. The white little beast suddenly enlarged in the sky, turning into a ferocious beast like the black Tautai. With a wild roar, it descended, pressing the black Tautai under its body, and its claws slashed out. The black Tautai was suppressed, and it couldn't move. The black gas on its body quickly dispersed. Roar! The white Tautai raised its head and roared. A white vortex revolved in its mouth, and it bit down on the black Taotia's head, as if it wanted to swallow the black Tautai. As the black aura continued to disperse, it flowed into the white Taotia's mouth. The black Taotia's solidified body gradually turned transparent, and the little girl within it gradually appeared. Everyone was shocked from afar. What was going on? Another Tautai appeared, and it was the white Tautai that wanted to swallow the black Tautai. Chu Chongqing's face changed. "Damn it! Stop it! This beast wants to borrow the black Taotia's energy to break the seal. If the white Tautai breaks the seal, the entire Valley of Gluttony will be finished. The patterns on Chu Chongqing's forehead trembled again. He carried the kitchen knife, and his body moved horizontally, slashing at the white Taotai. Boom! A wave of majestic knife energy hit the white Taoya's body, and the latter's body shook. The black Taotai took the opportunity to ram into the white Taotai, and it turned into a jet of black light, shooting up into the sky. The little girl's body turned black, and her eyes were pitch black. The black gas on her body was dissipating, but there was no Taotai around her body. Buzz, the little girl, floated in the air, and her pitch-black eyes scanned the surroundings. Suddenly, she locked on to Bufang. "Big brother," a soft, indistinct voice sounded. In the next moment, the little girl's body waved her limbs in the air, and she sprinted. Like a wild wolf, she dashed into the netherworld ship, pouncing on Bufang. Bufang's hair was blown by the strong wind, and his eyes focused. He raised his hand, and in an instant, he stopped the little girl's head. When he stopped the little girl, Bufang's face changed. The thick black gas on the little girl's body was like a small snake, and it drilled into his arm, through the vermilion robe, and into his body. From afar, the white Taotai opened its mouth, and it locked on to Bufang. Chu Chongqing and the others also took a deep breath, and they looked at Bufang on the netherworld ship. Chapter 689. Ah! The little girl's forehead was pressed against by Bufang, and her pitch-black skin, which was covered with dense black veins, began to tremble. The veins seemed to have come to life, and like tadpoles, they began to scurry around. She let out a miserable howl, her 4 limbs wriggling wildly in the air. That black energy surged out of her body, turning into small snakes that slithered toward Bufang's arm. The color of Xiao Ya's skin began to fade, revealing her white and tender skin. Bufang furrowed his brows. The vermilion robe on his body emitted a sparkling radiance, swaying with rustling sounds. The fiery red radiance expanded, trying to resist the Taoya's black energy. However, the Taoya's black energy was like maggots on a bone, rapidly drilling into Bufang's arm. The vermilion robe could only block half of it. Very quickly, that black energy had entered Bufang's arm. Sizzle! There seemed to be hot air rising, and Bufang felt a burning sensation on his arm. He opened his sleeve, discovering that the skin on his arm had begun to turn black, just like Xiao Ya's. "What the hell is this? Get out of here!" Bufang's face revealed a trace of coldness. How could a chef's hand be violated so easily? This black energy made Bufang very angry. You stood beside Bufang, the nether energy on her body surging. Sizzled green veins popped out on his face, spreading to his eyeballs ferociously. This is the spirit beast soul. It's looking for a host, and it has chosen you. Yu's eyes revealed a dignified look. This beast's soul was very strong. If Bufang was not careful, he could be swallowed. At that time, his entire body would turn into a ferocious spirit beast. Bufang did not care about you. At this moment, his eyes were fixed on his arm, where the black energy was still continuously drilling into it. The black energy in Xiao Ya's body seemed to be completely drilling into Bufang's arm. From afar, the white Taoya's gaze locked onto Bufang. Chu Chongqing and the others also looked at Bufang. Someone from the netherworld? Many experts frowned when they saw Nethery at Bufang's side. The eyes of the other elders became even colder. A netherworld creature dares to come to our hidden dragon royal court's territory, simply courting death. You seem to have heard the voices of these people. She raised her head, and green veins appeared from her ears to her eyes. Her eyes were as black as ink, and there seemed to be terror circulating within them. "Shut up," you coldly said. Her black hair instantly grew, becoming incomparably black, sinister and terrifying, wrapping around the surroundings. The white Taoya's 4 limbs glided slowly in the air. It turned around and opened its mouth wide. A white whirlpool was spinning in its mouth. The vortex was so deep that it seemed as if it wanted to devour everything. The white Taotai slightly extended its claw, and that claw touched the void. Instantly, the void began to ripple. In the next moment, the white Taotai dashed towards Bufang. Its speed was as fast as lightning. You twisted her neck. The dog fur on her wrist fluttered, and thick nether energy filled the air. She raised her hand, and a stream of nether energy gathered in front of her, turning into a magic array. Buzz, a rumble resounded. The white Taotai that was rushing over was suddenly hit by an invisible force, and its body was sent flying. It spun a few times in the air, and white spots of light scattered everywhere. Then, the white Taotai finally steadied its body. It grinned, and the light in its eyes became even more intense. A great void creature from the netherworld. Chu Chongsheng and the others sucked in a breath of cold air, looking at you in disbelief. After the elders recovered from their shock, their eyes were filled with excitement. Great void. Being able to capture a great void creature from the netherworld is also a great achievement. Kill. In that instant, the elders roared, and the soul ladder above their heads condensed. The six-step soul ladder appeared, and a star shone, shining brightly. Buzz, the elder, strode across the void, dashing towards you. Yu's pitch-black eyes coldly glanced at the elders, and the long dress on her body fluttered even though there was no wind. Her beautiful figure was revealed without a doubt. Thick nether energy gushed out from the dog fur on her wrist, and one of the dog fur was set ablaze, with a dark blue flame surging. Under Yu's feet, a dark blue magic array appeared, spinning slowly with boundless energy. Nether might. Yu raised both of her hands, and her red lips turned black as she opened her mouth. In the next moment, an invisible force burst out from her hands. The figures of the few old men who were striding over abruptly paused as they felt a terrifying power acting on their bodies. That power was invisible, but they could feel their hearts palpitating. Boom, boom, boom. It was like an invisible force exploded, and the elders were shot out like cannonballs, hitting the gluttony gods building hard. The magic array of the gluttony gods building flashed faintly. After they hit the gluttony gods building, they didn't stop, and the invisible force became even stronger. Boom. Swoosh. A huge force pressed down, and the elders instantly coughed out blood. Their bodies were forcefully pressed into the magic array. One of the elders' eyeballs almost popped out. Impossible! How could a great void creature know a profound meaning attack? After the dog fur was burned, Yu's body became weak, and the magic array under her feet dispersed. Her body landed on the netherworld ship, and as her sparkling feet stepped on the deck, a cold aura spread all over her body. There were still 2 strands of dog fur left. Yu turned to look at Bufang, and saw that Bufang was frowning, his eyes staring at her arm, which had turned as black as ink. He didn't move an inch. The black energy was ferocious, constantly surging, and in the next moment, it turned into the appearance of the black Taotai. When the black Taotai saw Bufang, its blood-red eyes lit up, and it opened its mouth wide, pouncing toward Bufang. Bufang frowned, and with a thought, the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. Why was there a dragon bone kitchen knife? Bufang was puzzled. It was just a subconscious action, and he didn't expect that the dragon bone kitchen knife would actually appear. Wasn't this his spirit sea? When the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared, Bufang twirled it, and he waved it at the black Taotai. There was a loud bang. The black Taotai was directly slashed into pieces by a kitchen knife. The black energy gathered again, and in the distance, it formed the shape of a Taotai. The black Taotai stared at Bufang in shock. Oh? So awesome? Bufang was stunned. Was the dragon bone kitchen knife this powerful? Or was it because this was his spirit sea, and he was invincible? Roar! All of a sudden, Bufang heard a deafening dragon roar. That dragon roar didn't come from the dragon bone kitchen knife, but from behind him. Bufang turned around and found that, within the gray energy, a huge golden figure appeared. Roar! A strong gust of wind blew, and a surging pressure swept over, causing Bufang's hair to flutter unceasingly. That was a dragon, the majestic golden dragon. The golden dragon's eyes were filled with wisdom. It glanced at Bufang, and then shifted its gaze, landing on the Taotai that was covered in black energy. The current host is too weak. How dare this kind of thing be so arrogant? The golden dragon opened its mouth, but it was the voice of an old man. Bufang was stunned. In the next moment, the dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand flew up, hovering in the air, emitting a bright radiance. In Bufang's other hand, green smoke curled up, and the black turtle constellation Wok also shone brightly, hovering in the air. In the gray space, there seemed to be a rumbling sound, and a huge figure carrying a towering mountain appeared. Bufang's mouth twitched. This is the black turtle? The host is still young. Don't be too demanding, take it slow, there's no rush. We've been asleep for tens of thousands of years, what's a little more time? Another old voice sounded. It was the black turtle. Along with the appearance of these two colossal creatures, a terrifying pressure permeated the entire spirit sea. Facing this pressure, the black Taotai didn't even dare to let out a fart. It curled up into a ball, trembling. Where is this? What happened? The black Taotai was dumbfounded. Spirit sea. Spiritual energy. Aren't these the spirits of the god of cooking Set? The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. In the next moment, the vermilion robe on his body emitted a red glow. A bird's cry resounded, and in the gray space, a fiery sparrow appeared from afar, spreading its wings. The black Taoyu's open mouth instantly closed. Golden dragon, ancient black turtle, fire vermilion bird. What the hell is this place? Chapter 690. The white Taotai opened its mouth wide, and a white vortex spun within it. Terrifying energy was released, and it rumbled unceasingly. Its body was formed from white spots of light. Before this, it had always been like that. But now, it was slowly turning into a physical entity. Different from the black Taoyu's ferocious appearance, the white Taotai was actually quite handsome after it had materialized. Its body was covered with soft fur, which fluttered in the wind. Don't be fooled by the white Taoyu's gentle appearance. In fact, it was extremely ferocious. From time to time, a terrifying fluctuation flashed through its eyes, causing many people to feel a lingering fear as they watched. The white Taoyu's four limbs moved, and its body landed on the pitch-black tablet of gluttony at the center of the gluttony square. It stood there, staring at the direction of the netherworld ship. On the netherworld ship there were three figures: a man, a woman, and a little girl. The white Taoyu's gaze locked onto the man's figure. It opened its mouth wide, and a white vortex floated up and down. The terrifying suction force continuously sucked in the surrounding heaven and earth spirit energy. Bufang stood still, his eyes lifeless, his face expressionless. He placed one hand on the little girl's forehead, and the black patterns on her skin began to wriggle and recede. Not long after, they completely disappeared. With a thud, the little girl fell onto the netherworld ship and fainted. Yu's pitch-black eyes glanced at Xiaoyu. With a wave of her hand, the cabin of the netherworld ship opened, and the little girl was directly swept inside. With a thud, the cabin closed once again. After Yu was done, she turned her head to look at Bufang. Bufang was still in his original position, not moving an inch. His arm was covered with black energy, and his entire arm had turned pitch black. Yu's red lips curled slightly, and a touch of coldness emerged. Her long black hair fluttered, and her eyes locked onto the white Taotai in the distance. Her sparkling feet stepped on the ice-cold deck of the netherworld ship. Her dress fluttered, and her entire body floated up. The white Taotai opened its mouth and let out a roar. Its eyes flashed with a fierce light. In the next moment, his claw suddenly slapped the tablet. Surprisingly, the towering tablet of gluttony, which was made of some unknown material, did not crack under the impact. The white Taoya's body turned into a baiguang, dashing towards you. Its four limbs moved in the air at an incredible speed. Energy gathered in his mouth and turned into white cannonballs. Boom, boom, boom. The white cannonballs kept bombarding towards Yu's position. Her veins bulged once more. Yu picked up the second strand of dog fur. Immediately, thick nether aura seeped out from the dog fur. This nether aura surged into her body, making her feel like her entire body was filled with power. The hidden dragon continent's restriction on her strength was much weaker. Buzz, Yu's body floated, and a blue array appeared in front of her again. As the array revolved, Yu raised her palm, causing the cannonballs to freeze in the air. With a wave of her hand, the cannonballs with terrifying power shot back. The white Taoya's body moved horizontally in the air, dodging all the cannonballs that were flying towards it. Nether Ghost Rush. Nethery's eyes seemed to have a deep blue light as she thrust her palm forward. The white Taotai opened its mouth. At this moment, its mouth kept expanding, as if it had turned into a sky curtain that was about to swallow the entire sky. This huge mouth bit down on you, its sharp teeth emitting a cold light. Boom! However, the white Taoya's mouth was hit by an invisible force. Its eyes widened, and its entire body was blown away, crashing into the Gluttony God's building. The Gluttony God's building's array shook, as if it was about to collapse. Many experts from afar sucked in a breath of cold air. Their faces were filled with disbelief. This woman was actually so strong. Lianqing felt a chill run down his spine. Yen Yu, who had attacked you, was stunned. Luckily, you didn't use this method to deal with him. Otherwise, he would have been smashed into meat paste by now. The heavenly secret saintess was wrapped in a long white dress. Her whole body was like a lotus flower that had transcended the mortal world. Her eyes scanned through everything calmly. She didn't make a move, only watching the battle calmly. Occasionally, her eyes would inadvertently glance at Bufang on the Netherworld ship, and her brows would furrow. In the Spirit Sea, the black Taotai was in despair. The black energy on its body was tightly shrunk, as if it had turned into a ball. It didn't even dare to let out a fart. As a beast spirit, it could clearly feel the pressure from the three terrifying existences in front of it. That kind of pressure was enough to make its soul tremble. Golden Dragon, Ancient Black Tortoise, Fire Vermilion Bird. Those were all legendary divine beasts. Not to mention the hidden dragon continent, even in the other great worlds, they would be the top existences. That kind of existence wasn't something a purebred Taotai like him could compare to. Spirit beasts cared about pressure the most, because they were extremely sensitive to it. Not to mention the ancient black tortoise and fire vermilion bird. Just the pressure from the golden dragon alone was enough to make him lie on the ground uncontrollably. He felt a little wronged. He had merely burrowed into the mind of a young human, wanting to take over and regain a new body. What the hell? How could a human spirit sea contain so many terrifying beast spirits? At this moment, he felt as if he had caught a brat and wanted to show off, only to find out that this brat was actually a hidden expert, the kind that could knock him down with a single slap. He wanted to escape, but his path of retreat had already been blocked. What should he do? He was really in despair. Bufang stood calmly at his original position. The vermilion robe on his body was emitting a dazzling radiance. Rays of light fell down from above. Beside him, the golden dragon bone kitchen knife and the golden black turtle constellation wok were floating. He didn't care about the black Taotai that had curled up into a ball. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the three gigantic figures that covered the sky. Even though Bufang had the system and was extremely resistant to pressure, he could still feel an oppressive aura from these three figures. This is our generation's little host? The gigantic flaming bird's gem-like eyes turned slightly and landed on Bufang's body. A gentle female voice rang out. Yes, our young little host, little fresh meat. The golden dragon's whiskers fluttered as it stuck out its tongue and licked its surroundings. Its ferocious fangs shone brightly as it spoke with a faint smile. Bufang furrowed his brows as he looked at the three gigantic beasts. The black tortoise lay there quietly and didn't say a word. It seemed to be the friendliest. Oh, little fresh meat. Big sister loves little fresh meat the most. The fire vermilion bird giggled like an oriole. The golden dragon rolled its eyes and glanced at the fluttering vermilion bird in disdain. Interspecies love doesn't end well. Old hag, you better not harm little fresh meat. The golden dragon said. The fire vermilion bird seemed to be angered as the feathers on its body started to burn. It turned its long neck and stared at the golden dragon. You old worm, say that again? The gold dragon grinned, revealing its sharp teeth as if it was laughing coldly. All right, don't scare the little host. The gloomy ancient black tortoise finally couldn't stand the bickering between the two and interrupted them. The huge eyeball turned and stared at Bufang, who was as small as an ant. Oh, little host, you're very calm, the black tortoise said in a muffled voice. Bufang looked at the black tortoise and smirked. Should I be panicking? The black tortoise was taken aback, but it let out a thunderous laugh that made Bufang frown uncontrollably. Interesting. Little host, you have quite a character, the black tortoise said. In the next moment, its eyes turned and landed on the body of the black Taotai. A mixed-breed Taotia's soul. What do you plan to do with it? The black tortoise asked. Eating the Taotia's meat raw sounds good. I like it. The texture is good. The golden dragon's beard swayed as it moved its head over. You old worm, you only know how to eat. Don't you know that braised Taotai meat is the best? The fire vermilion bird snorted and flapped its feathers. Bufang was speechless as he looked at the vermilion bird and the golden dragon. The black tortoise also sighed helplessly. The black Taotai was on the verge of tears. What had happened? What kind of place did it enter? Why were all the existences here so unfriendly? Isn't it good for us to talk amicably? Eating braised meat raw every time they opened their mouths. Although this black Taotia's bloodline is mixed, it was unlucky for him to enter the spirit sea. Originally, the three of us didn't want to bother with you because your cultivation is too weak. The black tortoise explained to Bufang like a wise and far-sighted elder. Bufang nodded seriously. He knew that the three in front of him were the three spirits of the god of cooking set. The system had mentioned it before. Back then, the system also mentioned that the god of cooking set had spirits. However, because his cultivation was too weak, the spirits didn't care about him. But you are the host of this generation. We old fellows naturally can't let you be harmed by this mixed-breed Taotai. Therefore, this old man will give you a portion of his power, the black tortoise said. Bufang was stunned. In the next moment, he realized that the dusky air suddenly fluctuated as if it was boiling. In the next moment, a yellow liquid droplet floated in front of Bufang. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, the black tortoise in front of him moved. The towering mountain on its back moved abruptly as it stretched out its gigantic claw that covered the sky. The gigantic claw waved towards Bufang. In the next moment, it lightly touched the yellow liquid. Buzz! Instantly, the liquid droplet drilled into the space between Bufang's eyebrows with a swoosh. Bufang only felt his entire body tremble. In the next moment, he opened his eyes. Everything seemed to have become much clearer. There's no change? Bufang was stunned. Was the black tortoise trying to scare him? It's up to you how you want to deal with this, Taotai. Your cultivation is too weak now. When you are strong enough, we will naturally help you to reach the peak, the black tortoise said. As he spoke, his figure slowly retreated into the dusky depths. What's the use of helping him? Which of the previous hosts wasn't a genius? They were much stronger than this muddle-headed little host. However, didn't they all fall at the last step? The vermilion bird mumbled. Her mumbling wasn't loud, but in Bufang's ears it was like thunder. Shut up, you old hag! Don't tell the truth. It's not good to scare the little host. He needs confidence now. The golden dragon said. Sigh, the black tortoise let out a long sigh. Both of you, shut up. The voice gradually dispersed, and the giant figure also disappeared. His spirit sea returned to its tranquil state once again. Bufang was speechless. This was the first time he heard someone describe him as muddle-headed. He was so cold and aloof. However, according to these tool spirits, the road to becoming the god of cooking wasn't easy. The previous hosts had all failed. The result of losing should be death and dissipation of Tao. Huff Bufang's heart was inexplicably depressed. However, he quickly thought it through. He just needed to do what he could and strive to reach the peak of his cooking skills. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Let nature take its course. Bufang clasped his hands behind his back and thought to himself. After thinking through everything, Bufang suddenly felt his mind open up. His eyes turned and landed on the black toutai that was curled up on the ground. It was time to deal with this pretentious thing. Chapter 691. Bufang clasped his hands behind his back as he stood in the dusky spirit sea. He calmly looked at the black toutai, who had curled up into a ball. It was time to deal with this pretentious plaything. Bufang thought to himself. As he thought about it, he looked at the black toutai with an evil gaze. The black toutai was initially suppressed by the golden dragon and the other two, not daring to move at all. But now the golden dragon and the other two had actually retreated. The terrifying pressure that permeated the air had disappeared just like that. The black tautya's mind became active once again. The pitch-black gas slowly spread out. Its body stretched out and its tentacles wriggled. Those terrifying existences had really disappeared. The tautya's soul seemed to be delighted. Its body once again turned into a ferocious tautai. A black vortex spun in its mouth. Its eyes stared at Bufang, and a terrifying aura filled the air. Bufang looked at the black toutai indifferently. The black toutai glared at Bufang. Their gazes collided in the air, and in the next moment, the black toutai pounced on Bufang. Bufang gently exhaled. This was his spirit sea, and his mental energy would be enhanced here. Facing the black toutai, he did not have the slightest bit of fear. With a single thought, the dusky space suddenly stirred up a storm. In the next moment, the black turtle constellation Wak appeared in Bufang's hand. The black tautya's eyes surged with ferocity. While the three terrifying existences were gone, it would seize this human's body first. After that, it would leave this space. At that time, even if the three existences were enraged, they would not be able to do anything to it. The black tautya's wishful thinking was not bad. However, it miscalculated one thing, and that was the power of the black turtle constellation Wak. With a bang, the black turtle constellation Wak smashed onto the black tautya's body. The initially nonchalant black tautya's body stiffened, and in the next moment, it felt a numbing pain. It was smashed onto the ground by the black turtle constellation Wak. The black tortoise aura on it caused his body to tremble. Does it work? Bufang looked at the black turtle constellation Wak in astonishment. He waved it once again and smashed it on the tautya's head. The tautai wanted to turn into smoke and disperse, but it was completely locked down by the black turtle's aura. Its head, which had just lifted up, was once again struck by the black turtle constellation Wak. The black tautai felt a piercing pain all over his body. That numbing sensation was akin to an electric shock, making him want to cry. With the black turtle constellation Wak in his hand, the black tautai knew that he had no way of dealing with this guy in front of him. Roar! Wanting to retaliate, the black tautai opened its huge mouth that was spinning like a whirlpool. However, what responded to him was still a Wak, and that Wak was even stuffed into his mouth by Bufang. His heart was stifled, and his teeth were all broken. He laid on the ground in a miserable manner. Bufang held the black turtle constellation walk in one hand and looked sideways at Tao Tai, who was lying on the ground. He calmly walked in front of it and said, "Why are you so weak? That's it?" Black Tao Tai. Bufang felt that it was a pity. Initially, he wanted to use this Tao Tai to train his skills, but in the end, he realized that this black Tao Tai was so weak. It was nowhere near as ferocious as it was in the outside world. Thinking of this, Bufang couldn't help but take out his wok again, smashing it on the black Tao Tai's head. The latter laid on the ground in despair. "You have a wok, you're awesome, okay." The black Tao Tai was in despair. "System, I've beaten this thing into submission. What should I do next?" Bufang asked the system curiously. He really didn't know how to deal with this black Tao Tai. The system was silent for a moment, and in the next moment, a buzzing sound rang out in Bufang's mind. In the next moment, Bufang felt his body tremble, and his consciousness returned to his body. His dull eyes lit up, and his body trembled slightly. After stabilizing himself, he twisted his body and looked into the distance. Over there, you and the white Tao Tai were fighting fiercely. The white Tao Tai's body was constantly attacking and crashing, and the white vortex in its mouth was constantly bombarding with terrifying energy. The dog fur in Yu's hand was already burning with a blue flame, and it was about to burn out. However, the white Tao Tai was still as fierce as ever, and it even seemed to be going crazy. Boom! In the distance, Chu Chongqing's upper body was naked, and his muscles were densely packed. Black patterns were pulsating on his skin. He punched the ancestral alligator's head repeatedly, smashing it to the ground. However, this thick-skinned ancestral alligator wasn't afraid at all. After being smashed to the ground, it soared into the sky, opened its mouth, and bit at Chu Chongqing. Its steel whip-like tail swept across the Gluttony God's building's formation, causing sparks to fly. Chu Chongqing and the ancestral alligator were also fighting fiercely. Buzz. Extracting purebred Tao Tai's energy, please wait for a moment, host. The system's serious voice resounded in Bufang's mind. Bufang was bewildered. Purebred Tao Tai's energy? Bufang looked at the ferocious white Tao Tai. He remembered that the gold dragon and the other tool spirits didn't care about the black Tao Tai at all, calling it a bastard Tao Tai every time it opened its mouth. Was it because the black and white Tao Tai's bloodline wasn't pure? The system's beeping sound resounded in his mind. This beeping sound was neither fast nor slow. Obviously, it was extracting the purebred energy from the Tao Tai's soul. Boom! The white Tao Tai once again hit the blue formation in front of you. Nethery's long black hair fluttered as she let out a muffled groan. Her figure floated back and landed on the Netherworld ship once again. Her rosy mouth was slightly opened and she was panting. She seemed to notice that Bufang had recovered, and she turned her head to look at Bufang. It was this one glance that made her dumbfounded. The aura on Bufang's body seemed to have undergone some strange changes, but she still couldn't understand these changes. The white Tao Tai stood in the void, and its soft white fur fluttered in the wind. It opened its mouth, and there was a mysterious energy circulating. Bufang squinted his eyes. Why did the white Tao Tai want to devour the black Tao Tai so much? Thinking about the purebred Tao Tai's energy that the system mentioned, could it be that the white Tao Tai wanted that? Maybe it was really possible. The white Tao Tai's eyes were burning with greed. Its paw slapped in the void, and in the next moment, it turned into a white light, rushing towards Bufang. Yu's beautiful brows furrowed, and she pinched the last strand of fur. Her sparkling feet stepped out, wanting to block in front of Bufang. However, she was stopped by Bufang. Bufang pressed on Yu's shoulder, pulling her behind him. Yu was bewildered, and she looked at Bufang, who was wearing the vermilion robe, who was slowly walking forward. What was Bufang trying to do? It wasn't just Yu who was confused. Almost everyone else had a puzzled look on their faces. Could it be that Bufang wanted to face the white Tao Tai head-on with his weak cultivation? That white Tao Tai was really scary. Even the great void netherworld beside him couldn't deal with it, so how could he, a divine physique echelon realm, deal with it? However, Bufang didn't care about the other's doubts. He only wanted to confirm one thing. What was so special about the earthy yellow liquid that the black tortoise had given him earlier? The droplet of liquid entered his body and disappeared, but it seemed to make his control of the black turtle constellation walk even more smooth. Furthermore, Bufang looked at the rapidly approaching white Taotai, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Moreover, he seemed to have obtained the black turtle's pressure. Green smoke curled around his hand, and the ancient and heavy black turtle constellation Wak fell into Bufang's hand. Buzz, at this moment, everyone felt that Bufang's aura had changed drastically. What was going on? Everyone felt that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Even the galloping white Taotai was stunned. In the next moment, its white fur stood up. Bufang's true energy surged into the black turtle constellation Wak. Instantly, a huge black turtle's shadow appeared behind Bufang. The pressure of a superior person instantly spread out from Bufang's body. The others didn't feel anything, but the white Taotia's eyes widened, filled with fear. This pressure. Boom! Bufang waved the black turtle constellation Wak, ruthlessly smashing onto the white Taotia's dashing figure. The white Taotai was stunned for a moment, and before it could even release its energy, it was sent flying by Bufang's Wak. Home run, perfect. Bufang lightly exhaled. Boom! The white Taotia's body fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground, creating a deep crater on the ground. Cracks started to spread everywhere. The white Taotai struggled to get up from the crater, shaking its head. Its originally solid body, after being smashed by the Wak, almost turned into light particles and dissipated. However, everyone was dumbfounded. Some peeked at Bufang with their mouths wide open, with a constipated expression. Some were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths, while others had goosebumps. They looked at Bufang as if he was a monster. "I'm not seeing things, am I?" One Wak smashed the legendary spirit beast. "Taotai?" Someone mumbled. Someone stood at the same spot, sucking in a breath of cold air, his face pale. Where did this kid get his strength to send the white Taotai flying? That was a Taotai, an existence that even a divine soul realm expert with a 5-step soul ladder couldn't deal with. How could this kid do it so easily? The white Taotai flipped its body, letting out a shrill cry. It also felt enraged. The mighty white Taotai was sent flying by a divine physique echelon ant. Following his shrill cry, the water of the sunset lake began to gurgle. Looking from above, it seemed as if a giant shadow was about to emerge from the lake. The pure Taotia's energy has been extracted. Does the host want to fuse with it? The system's serious voice resounded in Bufang's head. Fuse? Will I become a monster after fusing with it? Bufang asked. It won't, the system solemnly assured him. Bufang nodded. Then, fuse with it. The system remained silent. A moment later, Bufang felt waves of black energy diffusing from his body. That black energy revolved, covering his right hand and continuously fusing with it. The black energy turned into a black bandage, wrapping around Bufang's palm and half of his arm. 5 white fingers were exposed, looking quite funny. Fusing with it? The pure Taotia's energy turned into a bandage? Bufang's brows twitched. He clenched his fists, feeling a wave of terrifying energy rumbling within. Roar. On the ground, the white Taotia's roar ended, and its eyes turned scarlet. Its 4 limbs slammed on the ground, and its body shot out like a white lightning bolt, dashing towards Bufang. The white vortex in its mouth spun, absorbing the surrounding spirit energy and turning into a giant white energy cannon. The power of this move was so terrifying that even you, who was standing behind Bufang, paled. Be careful. You pinched the dog's fur in her hand, speaking to Bufang with a serious tone. However, Bufang was immersed in the black bandage on his arm. He could feel the white Taotai rushing up from below, its ferocious face facing Bufang. The terrifying energy ball in its mouth was spinning, bringing with it a howling gale. Die! Bufang seemed to see the scream in the white Taoya's eyes. Bufang furrowed his brows and took a deep breath. Then, he grabbed the black turtle constellation wok with his arm that was wrapped in the Taoya's bandage. An earthy radiance flashed on Bufang's body. Roar! On Bufang's arm, a bestial roar resounded. It was the roar of a purebred Taotai. Endless energy burst forth, and the black turtle constellation wok seemed to tear the air apart, whizzing out. Chapter 692. The wind howled. The air seemed to emit a sharp noise due to the friction. Everyone's eardrums were pierced by this noise, and they couldn't help but cover their ears and frown. Bang bang bang! The rocks on the ground crumbled. On Bufang's arm that was wrapped in black bandages, a terrifying power surged. Black energy surged, and the black turtle constellation wok shot out in an instant. Its speed was much faster than before. The black turtle constellation wok spun as it flew out. On top of the wok, there was a flickering light, and the earthy yellow halo on Bufang's body was faintly discernible. The vermilion robe fluttered under the wind. The white Taotai opened its mouth wide, and the huge energy ball in its mouth was aimed at Bufang. Its eyes were filled with murderous intent, as if it wanted to kill Bufang completely. However, very quickly it was dumbfounded, because it had jumped out from under the netherworld ship, and before the energy ball in its mouth could shoot out, the black turtle constellation wok smashed over. A violent explosion erupted in the air. The energy was smashed by the black turtle constellation wok, and a terrifying wave of air instantly spread out. The white Taoya's body was hit by the wave of air, and it violently hit the wall of the Glutton Gods building, causing the entire building to shake. The netherworld ship creaked, drifting in the air, and slowly moved horizontally. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The black turtle constellation wok flew back, and it was caught by Bufang's bandaged arm. The black energy on his arm continuously surged out. Bufang looked at his arm expressionlessly, and his heart was slightly shocked. The strength of his arm was much stronger. It was indeed the power of a purebred Taotai. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched, and he tilted his head, looking at the white Taotai that was slowly crawling out of the Glutton Gods building. At this moment, the white Taotai no longer had its physical form, as if it had turned into a speck of light, about to disappear at any time. Roar! The white Taotai opened its mouth wide, and it let out a wild roar in Bufang's direction. It was like a warning, and it was like a declaration of war. It wanted to make Bufang tremble in fear. The white Taotai was enraged, and its murderous aura filled the air. Everyone's heart trembled slightly, and they watched with a solemn expression. Bang! The white Taoya's four limbs slammed on the wall, and its entire body dashed out, dashing toward Bufang's location with extreme speed. Bufang held the black turtle constellation wok with one hand, a corner of the black bandage fluttering in the air. Slowly taking a step forward, Bufang walked out in the air. Yu was stunned. She could feel that Bufang's current state seemed to be a little strange. She couldn't quite put her finger on it. She stared at Bufang's arm, where the pitch-black power kept spreading. That power made even her heart palpitate. The void trembled. The white Taoya's steps were as fast as lightning. In an instant it disappeared from its original spot. When it reappeared, it was already in front of Bufang. It raised its white claw and slammed it down on Bufang's head. Roar! The claw was accompanied by a roar. However, the only response he got was a wok waved by Bufang. Boom! The black turtle constellation wok spun rapidly, smashing hard on the white Taoya's head. The white Taotai was a little dazed as it was smashed away. The black turtle constellation wok returned to Bufang's hand. The black energy on Bufang's arm was still dissipating, and Bufang felt as if his entire body was filled with endless energy. Striding forward, he slowly walked toward the white Taotai. Bufang's speed wasn't fast, but it was this kind of slow walk that made people's hearts tremble. Too scary. Why did that little chef's aura become so oppressive? Boom. Bufang held the walk with one hand, smashing it hard on the white Taotia's head. The white Taotai was a little dizzy from the blow, and its body retreated a few steps. Didn't you want to eat me? Come on. Boom. Bufang said indifferently. After that, he swung the wok, smashing it on the white Taotia's chin. The white Taotia's body staggered backward in the air. Continue acting tough. Bufang smashed the wok again. Boom. Boom. After a few continuous blows, the white Taotia's body became a little blurry, as if it was about to turn into light particles and disperse. The white Taotai seemed to finally be afraid. Seeing Bufang lift the wok again, it was so scared that its four limbs hurriedly moved in the air, trying to escape. What the hell? It couldn't resist the black wok in this kid's hand. The pressure from the wok, the monstrous strength on that kid's body, it made the white Taotai want to vomit blood. The white Taotai started to run, but Bufang didn't plan to let it go. Waving the wok, he strode in the air with big step. For a moment, the scene in the sky became a little funny. Everyone was speechless, looking up at the scene in the sky. They didn't know what kind of expression they should show. The legendary spirit beast, the Taotai, was actually being carried around by a human kid with a wok. The way it ran around while holding its head, it didn't look like the Taotia's domineering temperament. At this moment, the white Taotia's terrifying aura and heaven-shaking power had turned into nothingness. Xiao Yu sat on the ground, throwing his long sword aside. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Bufang. He was still the owner Bu after all. His actions always exceeded people's expectations. The heavenly secret saintess squinted her beautiful eyes, as if she couldn't hold back the smile on her face. Yu sat on the deck of the netherworld ship, her slender and fair legs dangling in the air. Boom. Bufang stretched out his hand, pressing the white Taotai against the wall. The black turtle constellation wok smashed down on its head. Boom. The gluttony god's building's formation shook, and so did the white Taotai. I heard that you're very arrogant. Continue. Bufang pressed down on the white Taotia's head, raising his arm that was wrapped in black bandages. The black turtle constellation wok floated in the air. An earthy yellow halo enveloped its body, and the suppressive might emanating from the earthy yellow halo rendered the white Taotai completely immobile. Boom. 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 Bufang's wok smashed down violently, and the white Taotai was beaten senseless. Suddenly, Bufang's black turtle constellation wok spun, and the last wok smashed down. Boom. The entire gluttony god's building's formation shook, and cracks appeared on it. The white Taotai howled miserably, and its entire body exploded, turning into white light that filled the sky, dispersing into the void. The white speck of light floated up and floated toward Bufang. There was a slight heat, as if he was bathing in an ocean of energy. The white Taotai was smashed into pieces by Bufang's wok. The scene of the white Taotai exploding caused everyone's eyes to widen, their faces filled with disbelief. The powerful white Taotai was smashed into pieces by someone's wok. Oh my God! What kind of terrifying thing happened? The entire place quieted down at this moment, and only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. Bufang clenched his fists, and the white light dispersed. He stopped waving the black turtle constellation wok. It really can't withstand smashing. It exploded after a few wok smashes, Bufang mumbled. Everyone was speechless. Chu Chongqing held the golden bowl to suppress the ancestral alligator, his bright eyes gazing at Bufang. From Bufang's body, he could feel an invisible pressure, which made him feel incredulous. There was something strange about this kid. And that black bandage. From it, he could feel a familiar aura, which belonged to the Taotai. Did this kid want to subdue the black Taotia's soul? It's over. Bufang stretched his neck. The aura on his body began to decrease rapidly, and the black bandage in his hand gradually calmed down. Landing back on the netherworld ship, Bufang felt a little dizzy, and he couldn't even stand stably. Using this Taotai arm consumes my mental energy, Bufang thought to himself. With his mental energy, he could only use the wok 5 times at most. If he used more, his spirit sea wouldn't be able to support it. Sitting down on the netherworld ship, Bufang gasped for breath. Beads of sweat dripped down from his forehead. These beads of sweat seemed to have burst out the moment his energy receded. Gulp. The silence lasted for a while. In the next moment, everyone swallowed their saliva, and the commotion broke out. The news that Bufang had smashed the white Taotai was spread out in a blink of an eye. Everyone looked at Bufang with awe in their eyes. "Where's the little girl?" Bufang's face was slightly pale, asking you, who was beside him. "In the cabin," you replied. Bufang stood up and slowly walked toward the cabin of the ship. Sure enough, he saw the little lass who was sleeping soundly in the cabin. Bufang was initially worried that the little girl would die after losing the black Taotai. Now, other than being a little weak, the little girl didn't seem to have suffered any other injuries. Rubbing the little girl's head, Bufang carried the little girl and walked out of the cabin. "System, everything is done. We can begin our return," Bufang muttered in his heart. The system was silent for a while, then its solemn voice resounded. "Temporary mission completed. Beginning return. 3, 2, 1. Array activated. The host will begin his return in 10 seconds. The system said. As soon as the system's voice disappeared, Bufang felt rays of light appearing out of thin air, condensing on top of his head. Everyone was a little confused as to what the sudden appearance of light on top of Bufang's head was. However, very quickly, many people recognized the array above Bufang's head. That was a teleportation array. Was Bufang planning to be teleported away? Was he planning to escape after acting tough? The few royal court experts and elders hiding in the Valley of Gluttony instantly released their auras, staring at Bufang. "You can't leave. Hand over the Taotia's soul," a red-faced old man roared. Although Bufang's smashing of the white Taotai was shocking and made them a little fearful, the current Bufang's aura was weak. It should be the side effect of using a secret technique. This was the best time to snatch the Taotia's soul. If they could get the Taotia's soul, everything would be worth it. Taotia's soul? Are you talking about the bandage in my hand? I'll stand right here. You can come and get it, Bufang said indifferently as he waved the black bandage around him. The elders were instantly enraged, greedily looking at the bandage in Bufang's hand. However, before the elders could make a move, the entire Valley of Gluttony seemed to shake. Chu Changxing's face changed. He looked in the direction of the Sunset Lake. Many experts also flew up, looking down from above. However, the faces of those experts quickly turned deathly pale, because in the Sunset Lake, the lake water was surging, and a figure that seemed to occupy the entire Sunset Lake rushed out. Crack! Clatter! Sounds of cold chains colliding resounded. In the next moment, the monster that blotted out the sun stood up. Its limbs and neck were sealed by chains. Roar! The giant beast roared and the wind howled. Bufang took a deep breath and looked at the giant beast. He realized that the giant beast's appearance was actually similar to the white Taotai that he had just killed. This is the white Taotia's true body. The real legendary spirit beast? Bufang took a deep breath. The others were also petrified, even Chu Changxing's lips trembled. Buzz, the formation is completed. Teleportation begins. Bufang looked at the gigantic beast and roared at it. The white spots of light on his body instantly fell, and a strong gust of wind blew. He had begun to return. However, in the next moment the white Taotai, which was several times bigger than before, let out an earth-shattering roar. Its true body moved forward, breaking several chains and pouncing towards Bufang. Chapter 693. Chu Changxing's mind was trembling. He looked at the terrifying existence that was about to break all the chains and crawl out of the Sunset Lake. That terrifying aura spread out, making everyone shiver. This aura had exceeded everyone's imagination. A few of the chains that bound the white Taotia's true body were broken. The white Taotia's head tilted forward, and a huge shadow loomed over the entire area. A white whirlpool spun in that terrifying mouth that looked like it could swallow a whole mountain. Its eyes, which were as big as a house, stared at the netherworld ship and Bufang, who was standing on it. This giant white Taotia's true body and the white Taotia's clone that had been smashed by Bufang's wok seemed to be connected. Even the look in its eyes was similar. Its eyes were filled with greed, desire, and the desire to plunder the black Taotia's soul in Bufang's body. However, the thick chains that bound its body had hindered its movement, and it couldn't escape. An ear-splitting roar resounded, and the entire valley of gluttony shook violently as if it was about to collapse. Its giant mouth bit down on Bufang's position, trying to stop Bufang from teleporting away. If Bufang teleported away, the black Taotia's soul would also be teleported away. Then, the white Taotia's plan to gather the pure bloodline and take that crucial step would fail. This was unforgivable. Hence, it had to stop Bufang. It had to stop this human from escaping. Dots of light gathered above Bufang's head, and the radiance continued to fall. The Netherworld woman and Bufang were a little weak. Although they had the help of the Lord Go's dog fur, the Netherworld woman had exerted so much power on the continent. She was still suppressed by the continent's natural law, and she became a little weak. As for Bufang, his spirit sea's mental energy was almost overdrawn. Although his mental energy was strong, the power that he had just released was enough to suppress the white Taotia's clone. It was roughly equivalent to the power of an expert with a 7-step soul ladder. One must know that Bufang's cultivation was only at the divine physique echelon, who had broken through one of the Supreme Being's shackles. Even in the holy land of the hidden dragon royal court, the existence of the divine soul with a 7-step soul ladder was a top expert that couldn't be neglected. At this moment, the true body of the white Taotai was extremely terrifying. The surrounding spiritual energy seemed to be boiling the moment this fellow appeared. This white Taotia's true body was definitely not just at the divine soul realm with a 7-step soul ladder. He might be at the peak of the 9-ladder divine soul realm. That kind of existence was absolutely a terrifying existence. The white whirlpool in the white Taotia's mouth released a terrifying fluctuation. That white hole was the white Taotia's strongest position. The mouth swallowed down. Bufang felt his skin tremble. He didn't know if he could use the teleportation formation to teleport them away before the mouth landed. If it didn't work, Bufang wasn't confident that he would really be torn to pieces by the white hole. Chu Changxing's eyes shrank when he saw that Bufang and the others didn't dodge. Hide. The Taotia's mouth can even tear the illusionary void. You guys might be swallowed during the teleportation. What? Chu Changxing's words made Bufang's eyes shrink. It could even swallow the illusionary void? What else couldn't it eat? Bufang furrowed his brows. He felt his head was heavy and his feet were light. His mental energy had been consumed too much, and he couldn't summon any strength at this moment. No, he couldn't be swallowed like this. Bufang gritted his teeth. His mind sank into his spirit sea, intending to squeeze out more mental energy to urge the Taotai arm and the black turtle constellation walk. However, right at this moment you leaned toward him. A cold, delicate fragrance entered Bufang's nose, making Bufang look at her suspiciously. You expressionlessly extended her hand, handing Bufang a strand of dog fur. His Excellency gave me 3 strands of dog fur. The first 2 were for me, but I've used them all. This one is for you, you said. Oh, His Excellency said that he can't give you this hair unless it's absolutely necessary. He's afraid that you will pluck all his soft, shiny fur when you return, you continued honestly. Bufang's mouth convulsed. What the heck was he, Bufang, the kind of person who would pluck a dog's fur for no reason? What happened to the trust between a man and a dog? Curling his lips, Bufang extended his hand, which was wrapped in black bandages. You immediately placed a black, shiny dog fur on Bufang's palm. Boom. Rumble. The sky had turned completely dark. The white vortex pressed down, covering the entire Glutton Gods building. Many people were already paralyzed by the terrifying pressure and fell to the ground, their faces pale. The ancestral alligator, which was suppressed by Chu Chongqing, was already lying motionless on the ground, shivering. Obviously, the white Taotia's power was too much for it to handle. Perhaps the white Taotai had done something indescribable to it. Bufang pinched the strand of dog fur, looking at it suspiciously. What's the use of this dog fur? Bufang was puzzled. Holding the dog fur in front of his eyes, Bufang looked at it expressionlessly. In the next moment, the dog fur suddenly ignited, emitting a blue radiance. Bufang was startled. With a buzz, the dog fur disappeared. Disappeared. Bufang was bewildered. He turned to look at Yu, wanting to ask. However, Yu was also staring at him with a confused face, indicating that she didn't know either. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. The teleportation array above his head had been completed, and the energy of the teleportation had spread out. However, the white Taotai had also descended. Boom. At this moment, everyone was stunned, because they saw countless amounts of energy gathering in the void. In just a blink of an eye, it had piled up in the sky. The energy swept over, and under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, it turned into a solid substance, covering the sky, a fat dog's paw. The dog's paw was plump, as if it was made of meat. It appeared at the side of the white Taotai, and in the next moment its paw slapped out. Boom! The white Taotia's open mouth was slapped, and it was flung away with a dumbfounded face. The white hole in its mouth was almost shattered, and some of its teeth were broken. What was going on? Who the hell dared to slap this Taotai? The white Taotai was enraged. Its body struggled violently, and the strong chains wrapped around its body, making rattling noises. With a roar, the white Taotia's eyes were ferocious as it stared at the fat dog's paw. What was that? Boom! Another paw slapped on the Taotia's face. The white Taotia's head tilted to the side, and its huge teeth fell on the ground like rocks, causing a loud boom. Bufang and Yu sat on the Netherworld ship, watching the scene with expressionless faces. So, a strand of dog fur had turned into a dog's paw. Lord is indeed a lord. He's so lazy. Yu's mouth twitched as she said. That lazy dog really has a way. To think that he could do such a thing. Bufang was speechless. Other than Bufang's group, the others were so shocked that they could not close their mouth. What the hell was going on? What was with the sudden appearance of a dog's paw? Especially, why was the dog's paw so fat? The white Taotia's true body was such a terrifying existence, and yet it was slapped twice without any resistance. Which Almighty was it? Everyone in the Valley of Gluttony was dumbfounded. Only an Almighty could have such power. Could it be that the Almighty from the royal court had made a move? No, a paw? Chu Chongqing stared blankly at the dog's paw, sucking in a breath of cold air. He felt that the Almighty from the royal court had made a move. He knew that although the Hidden Dragon Royal Court was the strongest force in the Hidden Dragon continent, in reality, there were many powerful existences within. They were not humans. Or rather, they were not humans. Lianqing was originally frightened, but when he saw the dog's paw, he became excited. The Almighty from the royal court had made a move. The royal court's elders in the Valley of Gluttony also laughed heartily, their eyes shining brightly. The white Taotai was stunned by the two dogs' paws. When it regained its senses, all the hair on its body stood on end. It opened its mouth wide, and an endless amount of energy gathered, forming an energy ball that seemed to have lightning flashing around it. Its power was terrifying, and the void seemed to be collapsing. Endless anger gathered. Where did this dog's paw come from? How dare it obstruct its opportunity? Kill. Energy gathered rapidly, but soon, the white Taotai was stunned. Before the energy ball could explode, the dog's paw slammed down once again. Again? You've slapped this Taotai twice, and you still want to slap it a third time? Is there no end to it? The white Taotai wanted to dodge, but it realized that the dog's paw seemed to be poisonous. It couldn't dodge at all. Boom! The white Taoyu's face was lifeless. Before the energy ball in its mouth could finish gathering, it was smashed by the dog's paw, and its entire face was flung to the side. Swish! Countless amounts of white liquid poured down, smashed onto the ground, and splattered everywhere. It was like the white Taoyu's saliva, but also like the white Taoyu's blood. 3 dogs' paws, and the white Taotai began to doubt its life. Swish! The wind became stronger and stronger. The energy of the teleportation array descended, wrapping the entire netherworld ship within it. Bufang looked at the white Taotai, who had been slapped to the point that it was doubting its own existence. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched. Bite me if you can. Bufang gently exhaled, his face emotionless. At this moment, many people noticed Bufang and the others, who were wrapped up in the wind. Many people were stunned, and in the next moment, some of them crazily dashed towards Bufang. Stay here. The soul of the Taotai, stay here. A red-faced old man roared, and true energy burst out from his body. A white-haired old man dashed over, his body like a white crane. At the same time, many experts arrived, wanting to stop Bufang from leaving. From afar, the 6th elder with a mustache looked like he was constipated, and his eyes were filled with tears. You stinking brat, if you want to leave, spit out my heaven and earth obsidian flame. In the sky, after the dog's paw swung 3 times, it gradually dissipated and disappeared. The white Taotai slowly raised its head, and its entire face was swollen. Its eyes were filled with ferocious energy, and it let out an indistinct roar of anger. Buzz! The teleportation array shone brightly, and the wind howled. In the next moment, the void distorted. The entire netherworld ship disappeared. Many experts were covered in energy, and they rushed over in the sky. However, they couldn't catch up, and they all pounced on empty air. Looking at the empty space, many experts scratched their heads in frustration. The 6th elder ran, and with a thud, he fell to the ground. The sound of his heart breaking was so obvious. We agreed to be each other's angels. Why did you run away after getting the fire? Where was the basic trust between people? Chapter 694. Boom! The white Taoyu's swollen head bit down ferociously on the space where the netherworld ship used to be. The space there seemed to have been shattered by the bite, and an endless amount of energy leaked out, shattering the space around it. Many experts were so scared that their bodies were drenched in cold sweat. They hurriedly moved to the side, avoiding the white Taoyu's devouring. The white Taotai roared in anger, and its fur fluttered in the wind. Terrifying energy and aura spread everywhere, shaking the space as if it was about to collapse. Its eyes were filled with cruelty, and it opened its mouth wide, letting out an unwilling roar. It was really unwilling. It was just one step away from completing its devouring and evolution, but it was ruined by a human brat. This made the white Taotai very annoyed. At this moment it was extremely jealous. Swish! The chains collided, and the pitch-black chains were surrounded by runes. In the next moment, more chains shot out from the sunset lake, wrapping around the white Taoyu's body, pulling it into the lake. Bit by bit, the white Taotai struggled. However, the number of chains kept increasing, and they pierced into its body, making it impossible for it to break free. The white Taotai raised its head unwillingly, letting out an angry roar. Swish, however, as the roar weakened, the white Taoyu's giant body was finally pulled back into the sunset lake. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. Everyone held their breaths, not daring to even breathe loudly. Everyone looked towards the sunset lake, their hearts trembling. Chu Changxing's body was tense, and his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. If the seal didn't work, it wouldn't be able to trap the white Tautai. Once that giant beast rushed out of the Sunset Lake, the entire Valley of Gluttony would be destroyed. The Valley of Gluttony was no longer the Valley of Gluttony of the past. The Valley Master was gone, and the number of experts was small. Only Chu Chongqing was left. The overall strength of the Valley of Gluttony had fallen to the bottom of the hidden dragon royal court, and even the saint's son of a holy land dared to trample on the Valley of Gluttony. If the Valley of Gluttony was at its peak, with a divine spirit realm expert guarding it, it would be easy to deal with the white Tautai. But now there were no divine spirit realm expert. With Chu Chongqing's strength, he wasn't the white Taotia's opponent. Hence, everyone was trembling in fear. Fortunately, the seal left behind by the divine spirit realm expert of the Valley of Gluttony was still in effect, sealing the frenzied white Tautai once again. However, everyone knew that this seal wouldn't last much longer. Chu Chongqing's face was extremely solemn. After a while, he exhaled deeply. The ancestral alligator under his feet rolled its eyes. A moment later, it crawled away with rumbling sounds, diving into the Sunset Lake. Chu Chongqing didn't care about this shameless ancestral alligator anymore. This fellow had thick skin and thick flesh, but its combat power wasn't enough to threaten the Valley of Gluttony. The main problem was the white Tautai. The elders that the other holy lands sent to the Valley of Gluttony let out a long sigh of relief. They looked at each other, seeing the strange look in each other's eyes. They came to the Valley of Gluttony for the Taotia's soul. Now that the Taotia's soul had disappeared, it was meaningless for them to continue being the elders of the Valley of Gluttony. Without the Taotia's soul, the Valley of Gluttony would lose its value. Soon it would be devoured by the Holy Land. Moreover, the death of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land's saint's son in the Valley of Gluttony gave the Heavenly Spring Holy Land an excuse to attack the Valley of Gluttony. One could imagine that the Valley of Gluttony would be in a precarious situation. Chu Chongqing alone might not be able to support the entire Valley of Gluttony. Above the Gluttony Gods building, the light blue formation was faintly discernible. It was covered with beautiful cracks. Chu Chongqing's muscular body was covered in a loose robe. He slowly walked forward, stepping on the broken stones on the ground. His eyes were sharp. After a while, he opened his mouth. Due to an accident, the unfinished Glutton Gods banquet will be postponed to 3 days later. Experts, please move to your rooms. We will meet again in 3 days. Should the Glutton Gods banquet continue? Many people looked at each other in dismay. However, at this moment, many people didn't have the heart to retort. Chu Chongqing was on the verge of exploding. Of course, they wouldn't be stupid enough to interrupt him. They all followed his instructions. Buzz, a gust of wind howled. Pill Palace, heavenly mist city in the pitch-black night sky, 2 crescent moons resonated with each other. The stars in the sky were shining with dazzling radiance. It was as if the night sky had condensed into a galaxy. It was too beautiful to behold. From time to time, a beautiful star streaked across the sky like a shooting star. It was as beautiful as a night-blooming flower. The Cloud Mist restaurant was brightly lit. From time to time, the sound of kitchen knives colliding with the chopping board could be heard. Outside the restaurant, it was exceptionally quiet. The autumn wind blew past, stirring up a few scattered leaves, which made a soft rustling sound. On the second floor of the restaurant, in Bufang's room, a strong gust of wind rose, and a whirlwind blew, making the room a little messy. White specks of light appeared within the gale. Those specks of light were like stars in the sky as they slowly drifted in the wind. Very quickly, they formed a mysterious teleportation array. 3 silhouettes slowly emerged from the gale. Bufang's hair fluttered in the wind. His face was expressionless, and the vermilion robe on his body emitted a dazzling radiance. He held the unconscious Xiaoya in his arms. Beside him was the pale-faced netherworld woman, who wore a black gauze dress. She had a beautiful figure, and her legs were fair and slender. The gust of wind gradually weakened and eventually dispersed. The three of them appeared in the room. Yu's complexion was as pale as a thin piece of paper. However, she curiously sized up Bufang's room, and a trace of curiosity flickered in her eyes. Bufang felt dizzy, and he sat down on the soft bed. After placing the little girl on the boat, Bufang gently exhaled and rubbed his temples. Yu quickly felt tired, and she widened her eyes as she looked at Bufang. "Bufang, I'm hungry," Yu said. Bufang rubbed his temples, and his swollen head felt much better. When he heard Yu's words, he nodded his head. This time, Nethery had played a big role. She had displayed such a strong cultivation base. Even with Lord Dog's dog fur, she still had to bear the backlash. It was only right for him to cook something to reward her. Xiaoya was still sleeping soundly. The black Taoya's soul that was sealed in her body had entered Bufang's body, causing Xiaoya to fall into a weakened state. After placing Xiaoya on his bed and covering her with a blanket, Bufang brought Yu out of the room. The two of them went downstairs. In the kitchen, the lights were still shining. Bufang was a little surprised. He came to the kitchen, leaned against the kitchen door, and looked inside. He found a huge figure carefully practicing his knife skills in the kitchen. The kitchen knife in her hand was moving, chopping ingredients continuously. Moreover, the cuts were very smooth and clean. Her knife skills seemed to have improved a lot. Bufang couldn't help but admire her. After dealing with a big pile of ingredients, Yang Meiji placed the heavy, pitch-black knife on the knife holder on the stove. She exhaled gently, wiping the sweat on her forehead. All of a sudden, she was startled. Turning around, she saw Bufang leaning against the kitchen door. "Owner Bu, you're back!" Yang Meiji's eyes brightened as she screamed in surprise. She didn't think that Bufang would come back without a word. Bufang straightened his body and nodded indifferently. He walked to the ingredients that Yang Meiji had prepared, reached out his hand, and picked up a portion of the ingredients, sizing it up. "Not bad. Your knife skills have improved a lot. Seems like you haven't neglected your knife skills training recently," Bufang complimented. Getting a compliment from Bufang, Yang Meiji felt a little embarrassed. She rubbed the back of her head, giggling foolishly. However, Bufang changed the topic, criticizing the ingredient. Yang Meiji's silly smile froze on her face. She nodded hurriedly. After a long time, Bufang, who was a little thirsty, asked Yang Meiji to rest first. Yang Meiji walked out of the kitchen with a bewildered face. She returned to her room and slept soundly. The thirsty Bufang stood up, walking to the fridge. He took out the sour plum juice. With a wave of his hand, a blue and white porcelain bowl appeared. He poured the cool and refreshing sour plum juice into it. Then, Bufang drank it happily. As soon as the sweet and sour plum juice entered his mouth, it made his pores shrink. It was like a sweet dew after a long drought. His entire body was wrapped in a refreshing feeling. Gulp. The sour plum juice flowed down his throat and into his stomach. The cool feeling made Bufang smack his lip. Comfortable. Bufang gently exhaled, drinking all the sour plum juice in the bowl. Only then did his body feel much more comfortable. His right hand was wrapped in a black bandage. A corner of the bandage drooped down. Bufang didn't care about it. Activating the Taotai arm consumed the mental energy in his spirit sea. Although it was good against enemies, it consumed too much energy. He wanted to cook a dish to reward you. Oh, and the Lord Go. If it weren't for the Lord Go's dog fur, he would have been in trouble. The white Taoya's level wasn't something Bufang could deal with. Green smoke twirled around his left hand, and the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared. Bufang flicked his finger, and the dragon bone kitchen knife spun in his hand. After twirling the knife, Bufang started to process the ingredients as fast as lightning. Tap, tap, tap. Bufang's knife skills had already reached a very profound level. The way he processed the ingredients was as beautiful as a painting. He raised his bandaged arm, and the black turtle constellation walk appeared. Bufang was a little surprised. His heart suddenly moved. He didn't know if the transformed black turtle constellation wok would increase the quality of the dish. Opening his mouth, a golden red heaven and earth obsidian flame flew out, drilling into the black turtle constellation wok and burning fiercely. He flicked the kitchen knife, slashing the chopping board. Instantly, the cut ingredients fell into the wok. After stir-frying for a while, the aroma assailed his nostrils. The black turtle constellation wok emitted a hazy yellow color, perfectly preserving the spirit energy of the ingredient. Pouring the dragon blood rice, Bufang began to cook it. Taking out the crystal source purple essence, he dripped a drop into it. Instantly, the crystal-clear crystal source purple essence was infused into the dish. Sizzle! After stir-frying for a while, steam rose. Bufang shook the wok, and the dragon blood rice was poured into a blue and white porcelain plate that he had prepared beforehand. The Heaven Alps spirit spring water was poured into the wok, washing away the smell of the dragon blood rice. Then, Bufang began to cook the Lord Go's sweet and sour ribs. After he finished cooking the sweet and sour ribs, he added a drop of crystal-clear crystal source purple essence, which emitted an immense amount of spiritual essence. When he was about to place the steaming hot sweet and sour ribs on a plate, his movements suddenly stopped, because the solemn voice of the system resounded in his mind. Chapter 695. The fragrant sweet and sour ribs had just been scooped out of the wok and placed onto the prepared blue and white porcelain plate. The jade-like sweet and sour ribs emitted a sparkling luster, and there was even spirit energy and aroma lingering above it. However, the solemn voice of the system resounded in Bufang's head at this moment. The voice made him a little sluggish. In the next instant, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up, as if he was smiling. Congratulations to the host for completing the stipulated turnover and cooking the dish prescribed by the system. Now upgrading. Was he going to advance? Finally, he was going to advance. Bufang let out a long sigh, and his expressionless face couldn't help but tremble. He strode out of the kitchen, carrying the fragrant dragon blood rice and sweet and sour ribs. As he strode out, the aura on his body also emitted earth-shattering changes. Dense true energy boiled within his body. With every step he took, spiritual energy that was about to condense into a solid substance appeared around him. Blackie you, it's time to eat. Bufang's face had already regained its composure, and he allowed the true energy in his body to rise. He arrived at the restaurant. The restaurant's door was tightly shut, and on the ceiling there was a crystal-like gem emitting a dazzling radiance, illuminating the entire restaurant as if it was daytime. You leaned against the chair, her complexion was deathly pale, and she seemed a little weak. However, when she smelled the fragrance wafting from the direction of the kitchen, her entire person became spirited. Under the path understanding tree, the Lord Go was still snoring away. The fat on his body seemed to tremble with every breath he took. When Bufang arrived at the restaurant, he opened his drowsy dog eyes and looked at Bufang. His gaze fell on the sweet and sour ribs in Bufang's hand. In the next instant, the Lord Go's eyes emitted a bright light, and he appeared next to you almost instantaneously. He placed his paw on the table, and he seemed extremely expectant. The energy within Bufang's body floated around, and with every step he took, the true energy in his body surged. The feeling of his strength increasing made Bufang feel extremely comfortable. After placing the sweet and sour ribs in front of the Lord Go, Blackus stuck out his tongue, stuck it out a few times, and started to chew continuously on the porcelain plate. Nethery's dragon blood rice was also placed on the table. Nethery's weak face instantly revealed a look of excitement. She lifted the porcelain plate and stretched out her fair and slender hands, grabbing the dragon blood rice and stuffing it into her mouth. The crystal source purple essence was added to the dragon blood rice, and its spirit energy surged. After eating a few mouthfuls, Nethery's complexion became much better, and a rosy color appeared on her face. The corners of Bu Fang's mouth couldn't help but curl up when he saw the two of them eating excitedly. He pulled a chair and sat down opposite the Lord Go. He let out a light breath, and his eyes gradually became misty. His mind sank into his body. Host, Bu Fang True Energy Cultivation Level, 10th Grade Divine Realm, Peak of Divine Physique Echelon, Cooking Talent, 5 stars Skills. Level 2 Meteor Cutting Technique, 100 out of 100, Level 2 Big Dipper Carving Technique, 100 out of 100, Level 1 Knife Technique, Overlord 13 Blades, 8 out of 13, Gourmet Array 2 out of 6, Tools, Golden Dragon Bone Kitchen Knife, God of Cooking Set, Black Turtle Constellation Wok, God of Cooking Set, Vermilion Chef Robe, God of Cooking Set, God of Cooking Overall Rating. Intermediate Chef, your cooking talent has reached a higher level, and your cooking skills have become more proficient. A wider world of cooking has opened up for you, and you can start cooking functional ingredient. System Level, Level 2, 11 stars, conversion ratio is at 100%. System Reward, Treasured Pagoda Meat Recipe, a fragment of the God of Cooking Set, 1/5 notification. The host's true energy cultivation has reached the peak of the divine physique echelon. Do you want to start the advancement test? The systems panel appeared in front of Bu Fang, and Bu Fang's eyes trembled when he saw it. The advancement this time actually directly raised his true energy cultivation to the peak of the divine physique echelon. Bu Fang also instantly felt that the 5 shackles that bound his body had been shattered. A powerful force surged into his body, and it continuously strengthened his body. Bu Fang's originally thin figure slightly swelled up, and his body was brimming with energy. This was the peak of the divine physique echelon. His body was incomparably strong. Bu Fang narrowed his eyes, and he sighed inwardly. However, before he could finish sighing, the system once again gave him a notification. Advancement test? What does that mean? Bu Fang slightly furrowed his brows, and his heart was filled with doubt. What was the so-called advancement test? Didn't he already finish his advancement? Why was there still a need for an advancement test? Hence, Bu Fang asked the system what the advancement test was. However, the answer given by the system was somewhat beyond Bu Fang's expectations. The host's true energy cultivation has reached the peak of the divine physique echelon, and the advancement test can be initiated to complete the last step of the breakthrough and become an existence of the divine soul echelon, the system said. Become a divine soul echelon? Bu Fang was stunned. He could directly complete the last step of the breakthrough and become a divine soul echelon? This made Bu Fang a little surprised, as he wasn't prepared for it. However, Bu Fang didn't plan to immediately try it. According to the system's naughty nature, this advancement test definitely wouldn't be easy, and it would definitely be extremely difficult. Hence, Bu Fang decided not to proceed with the advancement test for the time being. Then, Bu Fang began to check the reward for this breakthrough. Every breakthrough would result in a reward, and this was the system's habit. Hence, Bu Fang also came to check it out of habit. Treasured Pagoda Meat. Bu Fang narrowed his eyes. In his mind, he read the recipe for the treasured pagoda meat, and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. His heart was also a little itchy. This so-called treasured pagoda meat was a dish that completely tested one's knife skills. With Bu Fang's current knife skills, he might not be able to cook it. There were actually more fragments of the God of Cooking set. Bu Fang thought that he had already finished collecting the God of Cooking set, but he didn't expect that there would be more fragments this time. Moreover, the number of fragments needed to be collected this time was especially large, and he actually needed 5 pieces to complete the God of Cooking set. Could it be that this set was extremely awesome? By now, Bu Fang already understood how awesome the so-called God of Cooking set was. The more he understood how terrifying the God of Cooking set was, the more he understood why he needed to exchange for this set. If he wanted to achieve his dream of standing at the top of the food chain in the fantasy world, Relying on the god of cooking set was indispensable. A loud bang resounded. You licked the blue and white porcelain bowl clean. Her face was flushed red, and she was incomparably excited. She let out a slight burp, which was accompanied by a rich spirit essence. After eating her fill, you stood up and floated toward the path understanding tree. She took out the netherworld ship and smashed it in front of the path understanding tree. This woman didn't care about her image at all as she climbed into the netherworld ship and closed the cabin door with a bang. The Lord Go was still gobbling down the porcelain plate, and the sweet and sour ribs was almost finished. 80, this idealistic chicken, raised its head and walked around the restaurant in high spirit. As Bufang's true energy broke through, his spirit sea also seemed to have set off a storm, and his mental force was constantly increasing. The originally hazy gray space had a dense aura above it, and that aura was formed by the condensation of Bufang's mental force. Bufang's mental force had always been strong. Before he broke through, his mental force was even stronger than ordinary divine soul realm expert. Now that he had broken through, his mental force was much stronger. With a single thought, it seemed like a storm could be stirred up. This feeling strengthened Bufang's 5 senses. His eyes could see everything clearly, and his ears could hear most of the sounds in the surrounding area. What were the benefits of having a strong mental force? For Bufang, as a chef, as long as his mental force was strong, his knife skills and cooking skills would be greatly enhanced. That was because he needed to use his mental force to sense the spirit energy in the dishes. Only then could he fully control the flow of the spirit energy in the dishes, and achieve the greatest control over the spirit energy. The true energy in Bufang's body gradually calmed down, and finally stopped at the peak of the divine physique echelon. Bufang raised his hand, which was wrapped in a black bandage, and he could feel the terrifying energy contained in his arm. After Lord Go finished his meal, he slowly walked down from the dining table. Striding like a cat, he leisurely walked toward the path understanding tree. Soon, he laid down under the path understanding tree and fell asleep. Eat and sleep, sleep and eat. This was indeed the style of a lazy dog like Lord Go. The corners of Bufang's mouth rose. He stood up from his seat, put away the porcelain plates, and turned around to return to the kitchen. After placing the utensils in the automatic dishwasher, Bufang clapped his hands, then walked upstairs. With a snap, the lights in the restaurant were turned off. The moonlight shone through the window, sprinkling on the ground like silver. Lord Go lay on the ground, and the moonlight shone on his head, making him look lazy. Looking at Bufang's disappearing figure, the Lord Go's doggy mouth curled up into a smile. Bufang Kid's culinary skills have improved a lot. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's delicious sweet and sour ribs. Lord Go muttered. The 3 strands of dog fur he gave to you were all used up, which meant that the things these 2 kids experienced weren't easy. Bufang tidied up everything in the kitchen, then left the kitchen and returned to his room. But soon, he found that his bed had been lent to the little girl to sleep on. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched, and he helplessly rubbed his head. Then, he entered the bathroom and took a hot shower. Dense steam swirled around him. After taking a shower, he wrapped himself in an open-necked bathrobe, and with his slightly damp hair, he left the room and went to the kitchen. With a flick of his finger, the heavy and pitch-black kitchen knife landed in his hand. The heavy kitchen knife was incomparably sharp. After twirling the knife around, Bufang took out the ingredients provided by the system and began to practice his knife skills. Since all the seats in the room were occupied by the little girl, he could only practice his knife skills. While practicing his knife skills, he could also think about the reward he just received, the cooking method of the treasured meat pagoda. Tap tap tap. In the kitchen, the sound of the kitchen knife colliding with the chopping board resounded. The bright moon in the sky gradually descended in a certain direction, and the white of the fish's belly appeared as the morning star rose. The second day arrived quickly. Chapter 696. The Heavenly Spring Saint's son was dead. The news quickly reached the Heavenly Spring Holy Land of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court. The death of a saint's son was a humiliation for the Heavenly Spring Holy Land. The saint's son represented the Heavenly Spring Holy Land. He was the face of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land. However, today the Heavenly Spring Saint's son was killed. Not even his bones were left. Although someone had described the Heavenly Spring Saint's son's death to the experts of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land, it seemed that he wasn't killed by the people of the Valley of Gluttony. However, the Heavenly Spring Saint's son had fallen in the Valley of Gluttony, which was enough. The relationship between the Heavenly Spring Holy Land and the Valley of Gluttony was not good. Now that such a thing had happened, the Holy Land naturally had to send experts to settle the score with the Valley of Gluttony. Outside the Valley of Gluttony, the space shook and a metal warship slowly emerged from the rippling space, accompanied by a heavy roar. It was incomparably magnificent. On the warship there was a flag with a star pattern fluttering in the wind. It was the flag of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land. An old man clasped his hands, standing at the front of the warship. Behind him was a group of golden armor guards. The golden armor guards that the Heavenly Spring Saint's son brought were all dead. Even 2 of his maids were killed. At this moment, Chi-Ji was kneeling on the deck of the warship, her face full of fear. You mean, the Saint's son wanted to kill a little chef, but in the end, he was ambushed and swallowed by the Black Tautai? The old man's voice was full of pressure. With his hands clasped behind his back, he calmly asked Chi-Ji, who was kneeling on the ground, trembling in fear. Chi-Ji hurriedly nodded. She did not dare to lie. She had personally seen the Heavenly Spring Saint's son being swallowed by the Black Tautai. His body was minced into pieces. That scene was like a nightmare that haunted her. Even now, when she recalled it, her body still felt cold. This is simply preposterous. A dignified holy son actually died in such a humiliating manner. If Amethyst Elder knew that the holy son actually died in such a sullen manner, how angry would he be? The old man let out a soft sigh. In the next moment, the warship moved horizontally, heading toward the Valley of Gluttony. As though it was crushing the void, the air was constantly vibrating along with the warship. Did you send someone to investigate that little chef's background? Didn't that little chef say he wasn't from the Valley of Gluttony? The old man asked. A figure clad in golden armor appeared and replied, This subordinate has already investigated. That little chef isn't a local chef of the Valley of Gluttony. He's a chef from outside the valley. He opened a restaurant in the Pill Palace's Heavenly Mist City. Pill Palace. Are you sure it's the Pill Palace? After the old man heard this, he raised his eyebrows and turned around to ask in confusion. The Pill Palace was a very interesting place. Jiao Ya held the god-slaying bow and followed the Shura army to flatten the Pill Palace. In the end, the bow was broken and he died. The entire Shura army was almost annihilated. The Pill Palace seemed to have a demonic nature. After Amethyst Elder got wind of it, he sent the Shadow Demon to deal with the netherworld creature hiding in the Pill Palace. However, there was no news from him. Moreover, in the previous battle in the Valley of Gluttony, there seemed to be netherworld creatures appearing. What was the relationship between that little chef and the netherworld creatures? The old man thought about many things in an instant. No matter what, we should go to the Valley of Gluttony to seek justice. It's been a long time since I've seen Chu Chongqing from the Valley of Gluttony. Today, I want to learn from him. As for that little chef, he has the soul of a Tautai and is closely related to the death of the saint's son. Golden Saber, bring 50 golden armor guards to capture that little chef. As for the netherworld creatures, take the god-slaying saber and go. The old man clasped his hands behind his back. The man clad in golden armor was bewildered. After clasping his hands, he turned around and left. After a while, a slightly smaller spirit boat descended from the warship. The spirit boat was made of glass, and it was engraved with many arrays. The arrays flashed with radiance, and with a loud rumble, it shot into the distance. The old man looked at the spirit boat disappearing, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled up. All right, it's time to find Chu Chongqing and settle the score. The morning sunlight shone in from the window. That warm light shone on Xiao Ya's body, causing her eyelids to twitch involuntarily. Her body flipped, and her hand involuntarily raised, rubbing her nose. She slowly opened her eyes, and the blurry scene quickly became clear. A white ceiling, a soft bed, a warm blanket, and that warm sunlight. After the little girl saw the scene in front of her clearly, her entire body was slightly dazed. She sat up on the bed, her braided hair a little messy. Where is this place? Xiao Yu was a little confused. She turned her head to look at the room. It was clean and tidy, simple but not complicated. It was a very simple room. This bed is so comfortable. I really want to lie on it for a while. Xiao Yu's butt moved, bouncing on the bed. That soft bed gave her a feeling, and a smile appeared on her face. Barefooted, the little girl got off the bed. On the side of the bed, there was a pair of large, strange-looking shoes. The little girl placed her feet into her shoes, revealing her sparkling and adorable feet. She dragged her big shoes and walked toward the window with a pitter-patter. Opening the window, a wave of clamor entered her ears. Wow! Owner Boo is finally back. I've waited for so long. I'm really craving it. Finally, I can eat Owner Boo's dishes again. I'm so happy. Why is this line so long? The people in front, hurry up! The little girl peeked her head out and saw the long line below. A group of people were standing at the entrance of the restaurant, shouting. So lively! Xiao Yu was shocked. Was this the restaurant of some famous chef? As someone who had lived in a restaurant for so long, Xiao Yu naturally knew what was happening below. However, she had never seen such a lively scene before, so she was a little uncomfortable. She was wearing a long gown. The gown was too long for her height, and the sleeves were hanging down. The little girl pulled up her sleeves, revealing her palms. She lifted the hem of her lower body and tied a knot, forming a simple skirt. Then, she walked out of the door. Slowly walking down the stairs, she saw a bustling kitchen on the left, and an even more bustling restaurant on the right. The little girl stood at the foot of the stairs and thought for a while. She turned her head to look at the kitchen, wanting to see which chef was in it. However, before she could peek her head out, a figure walked out from the kitchen, and a wave of fragrance assaulted her. The little girl felt as if her head had bumped into something soft and bouncy. She bounced off and fell on her butt on the stairs. Sorceress and Xing felt her breasts being attacked, and she was instantly shocked. She almost dropped the steaming hot dish in her hands. Luckily, she reacted quickly and steadied herself. After stabilizing the dish in her hands, Sorceress and Xing looked at the culprit who attacked her breasts with dissatisfaction. A little girl? Huh? Isn't this Owner Boo's long robe? Huh? This little girl came out from Owner Boo's room? Sorceress and Xing looked at Xiao Ya, and her beautiful face instantly changed. She exclaimed in surprise 3 times, and her mind turned 1,000 times. Xiao Ya stared at the big sister in front of her, whose breasts were almost as big as her head. This big sister's eyes were so scary. Was there such a big sister on the tablet of gluttony? There didn't seem to be such a big sister. If there was such a big sister, even without her cooking skills, this big sister would already be famous. Little sister, the kitchen is an important place. You can't just casually enter. Although Sorceress and Xing was curious, she was still in a hurry to serve the dishes. She bent down and smiled at Xiao Ya, then turned around and walked towards the restaurant. Xiao Ya was dumbfounded. She wasn't allowed to enter the kitchen? She really didn't believe it. As a little girl who had been in the kitchen for so long, how could she give up exploring the kitchen just because of a few words from that big-breasted woman? Hence, Xiao Ya rolled up her sleeves and peeked her head out again. Bang! This time, Xiao Ya bumped into someone again. However, compared to the softness from before, this time, it was as though she had bumped into a huge rock. Xiaoya plopped down on the stairs, and her butt bumped against the stairs. Yang Meiji, who was carrying the dishes, was bumped into by the little girl. She looked at her and instantly raised her eyebrows. She smiled and said, "Little sister, the kitchen is an important place. You can't go in." After saying that, Yang Meiji turned around and walked towards the restaurant. The little girl's face was blank. Why was this big sister so strange? Which chef's restaurant did she come to? All of a sudden, a figure walked out of the kitchen. That figure was so familiar that it made Xiao Ya's eyes slightly widen. Wasn't that big brother Bufang? Bufang's hands were stained with water. When he saw Xiao Ya, he was a little surprised. He nodded his head and said with an expressionless face, "You're awake. Your clothes don't fit. It's all right. I will ask Yang Meiji to make a new set for you." The little girl's clothes were torn and tattered by the terrifying energy when she transformed into the black Taotai. Hence, Bufang helped her change into his own clothes. "Since you're awake, come and eat," Bufang said. After wiping his hands clean, he raised his hand and patted the little girl's head. Seeing that it was Bufang, the little girl was more at ease. She followed behind Bufang with those weird big shoes. As soon as they entered the restaurant, the little girl felt a little dizzy. This bustling atmosphere caused the little girl to freeze on the spot. So lively! Why are there so many people? So many people? Owner Bu. Good morning. A customer greeted Bufang while eating. Bufang nodded his head in response. "Hey, old Bu, long time no see. Your cooking skills have improved. This Buddha jumps over the wall soup is even more delicious now." Nangong Wuk was gnawing on a pig trotter. When he saw Bufang, he waved the pig trotter in his hand and said happily. The corners of Bufang's mouth curled up. In an instant, the little girl's figure landed on the side of Nangong Wuk's table. The little girl sat on the table and looked at the Buddha jumps over the wall soup on the table. Her eyes widened and her nose twitched. Her stomach seemed to be filled with hunger. "Sit down. I will cook you some egg-fried rice." Bufang rubbed Xiao Ya's head and looked at Nangong Wuk. Then, he turned around and walked toward the kitchen. Xiao Ya swallowed a mouthful of saliva and nodded her head. Nangong Wuk looked at Xiao Ya curiously. The flames of gossip burned in his eyes. Could it be that this little girl was the type that Owner Bu liked? No wonder Owner Bu didn't like his little girl. It turned out that he liked this type. Nangong Wuk sighed inwardly. He felt sad for his little sister. Being too beautiful was also a sin. Just as Nangong Wuk was sighing, Xiao Ya's charming voice suddenly rang out. "Big brother, can I taste this dish?" Xiao Ya blinked her big eyes and looked at Nangong Wuk pitifully. Nangong Wuk was taken aback. His heart softened. Eat, how much could a little girl eat? He had to ask Big Boobsan to bring a small bowl. Nangong Wuk thought that this little girl seemed to have a close relationship with Owner Bu. He couldn't treat her badly. However, in the next moment, Nangong Wuk looked at Xiao Ya and almost peed his pants. Chapter 697. Nangong Wuk was dumbstruck as he looked at Xiao Ya. His eyes slowly shrank, and the expression on his face began to become extremely distorted, even becoming extremely terrifying, as if he had seen something unbelievable. After Xiao Ya got Nangong Wuk's approval, her eyes instantly narrowed. Her heart was filled with joy. There were still many good people in this world. In the next instant, she stretched out her hand and picked up the porcelain jar that contained the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Her mouth suddenly widened to an unbelievable size. As Nangong Wuk watched, his mouth involuntarily widened as well. Gulp, gulp. Nangong Wuk's mouth opened so wide that it seemed as though he could swallow 2 large eggs. He only ate 1 piece of pig trotter from the entire jar of Buddha jumps over the wall soup. In the end, the rest was swallowed by this little girl in 1 gulp. Not even a drop of soup was left. With a bang, the little girl placed the jar of Buddha jumps over the wall soup on the table. Her mouth puffed up and down, then with a smacking sound, she swallowed it all. Her lips, which had become plump and glossy because of the oil, were rubbed clean by Bufang's long robe. Gently letting out a breath, the little girl felt a wave of elation. It's delicious. Thank you, big brother. Xiao Yu's long eyelashes fluttered as she looked at Nangong Wuk with her big eyes. Nangong Wuk tilted his head and opened his mouth wide. He looked at Xiao Yu and couldn't help but nod. Ahaha, as long as you're happy. When Nangong Wuk said these words, his heart was bleeding. He originally wanted to prepare a small bowl, but in the end, why did he prepare a small bowl? A small bowl might not even be enough to fill the gaps between this little girl's teeth. Where did this glutton come from? Nangong Wuk was somewhat speechless. His mouth twitched as he looked at the little girl as though he was looking at a monster. Big brother, I'm sorry. I ate it all. Xiao Yu seemed to have noticed the surprise in Nangong Wuk's eyes. She immediately scratched the back of her head in embarrassment. It's okay, as long as you're happy. Alright, pardon me for asking. Are you old Bu's illegitimate daughter? Nangong Wuk suddenly narrowed his eyes. There seemed to be a flash of light in his eyes as he moved his head closer to Xiao Yu's ear and secretly asked. Xiao Yu was dumbfounded. Who was old Bu? Old Bu is owner Bu. The one with the poker face in front of you, Nangong Wuk said mysteriously. No. Big brother treats Xiao Yu very well, but Xiao Yu's parents passed away a long time ago. The little girl quickly waved her hands. She passed away. Nangong Wuk was startled, and the mysterious expression on his face faded away. He extended his hand and patted the little girl's head, and an apologetic expression appeared on his face. Oh, poor little girl, Nangong Wuk said as he stroked the little girl's messy hair. Xiao Yu was speechless. Nangong Wuk continued to chat with Xiao Yu, and before he knew it, he had talked about a lot of things. They talked about everything under the heavens, causing the little girl to be dumbfounded. Is this big brother sick? Why can't I understand what he's saying? After a long time, the sound of footsteps could be heard. From the kitchen, a skinny and slender figure appeared. He held a bowl of egg-fried rice in his hand as he walked slowly. After a short while, he arrived in front of the little girl. Placing the piping hot egg-fried rice in front of the little girl, Bufang looked at Nangong Wuk and nodded his head. Have you finished eating? Bufang looked at the jar of Buddha jumps over the wall soup in front of Nangong Wuk and couldn't help but ask. The corners of Nangong Wuk's mouth twitched. That's right. He had finished it and he ate it extremely quickly. Okay, you can leave after you've finished eating. There's still a line behind you, Bufang said. Nangong Wuk immediately looked at Bufang with a bitter expression. Old Bu, can you not be like this? I still want to chat with Xiao Yu, talk about life, talk about ideals, and talk about building a beautiful future together. Bufang tilted his head and expressionlessly looked at Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk licked his lips and laughed dryly. He pointed at the menu behind him and randomly ordered a bunch of dishes. Since he was the head of the Nangong family, he didn't lack money. Bufang speechlessly looked at Nangong Wuk, then turned around and went back to the kitchen to continue cooking. Old Bu's cooking skills aren't bad. It's just that his face is a little stiff, Nangong Wuk muttered as he looked at Bufang's back. Big brother is a good person, Xiao Yu said seriously. Just eat it yourself. Old Bu isn't your father, so why are you speaking up for him? Nangong Wuk didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he patted Xiao Yu's head. Xiao Yu was speechless. However, Xiao Yu quickly turned her attention back to the egg-fried rice that Bufang had placed in front of her. The egg-fried rice was steaming hot, and the rich steam, along with the fragrance and spirit energy, rose from it. It lingered around the tip of Xiao Yu's nose, and she couldn't help but feel hungry. She picked up the spoon and scooped up a spoonful of egg-fried rice. When the egg-fried rice was pulled apart, a rich fragrance burst forth. It was like an exploding bomb, and waves of heat surged. The impact caused Xiao Ya's hair to flutter unceasingly. "It smells so good!" Xiao Ya exclaimed. "Old Boo's egg fried rice. That's his signature dish," Nangong Wuk said as his nostrils flared. However, Xiao Ya didn't care about Nangong Wuk this time. This brother of hers really talked a lot of nonsense. With a slurping sound, the steaming hot egg-fried rice entered her mouth. It was so hot that Xiao Ya couldn't help but exhale. After losing the soul of the Taotai, Xiao Ya seemed to have lost that fearless, gluttonous power. However, her appetite was still huge. Once the egg-fried rice entered her mouth, the originally viscous egg liquid became solid. It wrapped around the rice grains and was filled with elasticity. As it bounced in Xiao Ya's mouth, it brought her a different kind of enjoyment. Delicious, right? Delicious, right? Let me tell you, Old Boo's food is even more delicious than the Buddha jumps over the wall soup that you just ate. Nangong Wuk was still chattering by the side. You ate so fast that you probably didn't taste the taste of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Let me tell you, that taste can only be described with one word: awesome. Xiao Ya gave Nangong Wuk a sidelong glance, then quickly stuffed spoonfuls of egg-fried rice into her mouth. Her mouth was filled with egg-fried rice, and there was even a grain of rice at the corner of her mouth. You finished eating? Nangong Wuk was about to continue praising her, but when he turned his head, Xiao Ya was already holding the bowl and licking it. This speed was really a little scary. Putting down the bowl, the little girl unconsciously burped. Ever since the soul of the Taotai left her body, although her appetite was still huge, there was a limit. She would still feel full. Yang Meiji walked over with a dish in her hands. Her face was a little bashful. After placing the dish on the table, she shyly looked at Nangong Wuk, waved her little fist, and ran away. After Nangong Wuk thanked Yang Meiji, he prepared to start eating. However, the little girl beside him stared at him with her big, watery eyes, causing him to involuntarily smack his lips. "Come, let's eat together. Remember to give me." Nangong Wuk pushed the plate of sweet and sour ribs toward Xiao Ya's seat, preparing to say something. Xiao Ya's eyes lit up. After thanking him, she lifted the plate and opened her mouth wide, swallowing the sweet and sour ribs into her stomach. Nangong Wuk tilted his head, his face full of shock. Why wasn't she this wild when eating the egg-fried rice? Why was she so skillful when snatching food? So, she was this kind of little girl. Letting out a deep breath, Nangong Wuk opened his nostrils at Xiao Ya. The next dish. Let's see who can eat faster. Sorceress and Xing swayed her body as she walked over. Many people in the restaurant were attracted by her figure. After placing a plate of red braised meat in front of Xiao Ya, she giggled and rubbed Xiao Ya's head. Then, she turned around and left. Nangong Wuk's eyes instantly sharpened. Picking up his chopsticks, he dashed toward the porcelain plate as fast as lightning. He was racing against time just to eat. However, he failed. The little lass picked up the porcelain plate again and opened her mouth wide. She gulped down the entire red braised meat in one gulp. Nangong Wuk's eyes were dull. His mouth was wide open, and his nostrils were puffing out white gas. He felt a sense of helplessness, as though he was surrounded by nothing in this life. This little girl. Didn't we agree to be each other's angel? It's delicious. It's even better than the dishes of the chefs on the tablet of gluttony, Xiao Ya said happily. Nangong Wuk felt like crying. If it's delicious, then let me have a bite. The remaining dishes were all served. However, with Nangong Wuk's unremitting efforts, he finally managed to eat a few bites. Of course, his eating speed couldn't be compared to Xiao Ya's. But at least he managed to eat it. Just this point alone had moved Nangong Wuk for a long time. This meal lasted for quite a while. Nangong Wuk finally left with a face full of tears. This little girl was definitely a glutton. There was no need to appraise her. I hope this little girl will eat until old Boo becomes poor. Nangong Wuk thought to himself as he walked out of the restaurant. Looking at Nangong Wuk's back as he left, Bu Fong walked out of the kitchen. He looked at the little girl who was leaning on the chair and panting happily, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Are you full? Bu Fong stretched out his arm, which was wrapped in black bandages, and rubbed the little girl's head. Xiao Ye instantly felt a wave of energy that made her feel extremely comfortable. She squinted her eyes, looking as gentle as a kitten. I'm full. That big brother was really nice. He was willing to share food with Xiao Ye said. Oh? All right, as long as you're full, Bu Fong said. After saying that, he turned around and returned to the kitchen. The business continued. The little girl was very happy. This kind of bustling restaurant atmosphere allowed her to quickly immerse herself in it. She helped to serve the dishes, and she was very happy. Her small face became flushed. You saw that the little girl was so diligent, so she pulled the little girl and reminded her how to order the dishes. Then, she pulled a chair and curled up under the path understanding tree. She squinted her eyes and took a nap. You and Xiao Ye could be considered to have become friends through eating. When the two of them ate at the Glutton God's banquet, they both felt that the food was special. When the sun set in the west, a busy day of business finally came to an end. Yang Meiji and Sorceress and Sheng were both exhausted. They pulled out chairs and sat down to rest. As for Bu Fong, he was expressionless in the kitchen. He was preparing a new dish. Chapter 698. The new dish, the system's reward for leveling up, was called treasured pagoda meat. As the name suggested, it was meat that was piled up like a pagoda. This was a dish that required a lot of knife skills. After visualizing the recipe, Bu Fong fell into deep thought. The treasured pagoda meat was made by stacking pieces of meat that were cut into hexagons according to strict sizes. The gap between each piece of meat had to be the same size. If the gap was too big or too small, it would affect the overall beauty of the treasured pagoda meat. Moreover, it would greatly damage the texture of the meat. This dish was provided by the system, so the selection of ingredients was also regulated by the system. Of course, Bu Fong could also choose to use ingredients of a higher grade. However, Bu Fong was not in a hurry. He could first use the ingredients provided by the system to practice his skills. The difficulty of this dish was relatively high. In other words, the difficulty of the dishes provided by the system was getting higher and higher. It was not as easy as before. After thinking for a long time, Bu Fong seemed to have a card up his sleeve. He gently exhaled, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He walked to the bottom of the cabinet and pulled it open. Inside were the ingredients provided by the system. A big piece of white spirit beast meat that was rich in spirit energy. Divine physique echelon realm spirit beast, mortal transformation spirit pig. It lives in the ancient jade holy land of the hidden dragon continent's hidden dragon royal court. It feeds on the spirit fruits of heaven and earth, and drinks the spirit water of the ancient jade spirit pool to grow. Its meat is fat and tender, and its texture is delicious. Its meat has a unique fragrance and is rich in spirit energy. It is an excellent ingredient. In his mind, the system's explanation of the spirit beast meat popped up. This piece of white meat was pork. Moreover, it was not ordinary pork. It was pork from the ancient jade Holy Land. Perhaps it was a spirit beast pig that was specially raised by the Holy Land. Since it was a spirit beast pig that was specially raised by the Holy Land, there was no doubt that its meat quality was excellent. Bu Fong took out the piece of meat. It was incomparably smooth, as if he was holding a piece of soap. It was so slippery that it seemed like it was about to break free from his hand. However, Bu Fong was a chef after all, so he was very experienced in dealing with ingredients. With a shake of his hand, the piece of meat was sent flying into the air and landed on the stove. A loud bang resounded. The flesh was still trembling, and the fat was shaking incessantly. It was a ghastly sight. Bufang clapped his hands and continued to take out other ingredients from the cupboard. The ingredients were quite plentiful. There were spiritual herbs and spiritual materials. Although their grades were not very high, they were considered very good spiritual materials in the divine physique echelon realm. As Bufang grabbed the spiritual material, dense spiritual energy diffused out from the spiritual material and wrapped around his hand. Bufang placed these spirit materials to the side and used the boiled Heaven Alps spirit spring water to blanch them. After being boiled in the Heaven Mountain spirit spring water, not only did the spirit materials not become wrinkled, but they became even more vibrant. Bufang put them aside for later use. He raised his arm that was wrapped in black bandages. Black smoke filled the air as the Black Turtle Constellation Walk floated out. Currently, the Black Turtle Constellation Walk gave off an immense sense of oppression. There seemed to be a khaki halo slowly flowing on it. Bufang placed the Black Turtle Constellation Walk on the stove. The dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his left hand. With a twist of the knife flashed. Bufang's gaze fell on the transcendent mortal pork on the stove, and he prepared to process it. This treasured pagoda meat was a test of Bufang's knife skills. Knife skills were the most important step. The knife skills were crucial. Once there was a mistake, the taste and beauty of the dish would be greatly affected. With a flick of his finger, the dragon bone kitchen knife spun in his hand. It was as though it was cutting through the air. Bufang pressed down on the pork with one hand and squeezed it with his fingers. The bounciness that returned to him made Bufang quite satisfied. It was indeed a good ingredient. In the next instant, Bufang's entire aura changed. He became aloof and domineering like a king. Rip! Like a shooting star tearing through the night, the pork was suddenly cut in half by the dragon bone kitchen knife. Holding the knife horizontally, he pressed down on the pork with one hand. Swish! Slowly rubbing the kitchen knife, the piece of pork was cut off. It wasn't very thick. The tip of the knife pointed downwards, and the few corners were cut off, turning the pork into a neat hexagonal shape. This could be considered as completing the first step. This step couldn't be completed. It was to make the base of the treasured pagoda meat. However, the higher it was, the more of a test of his knife skills. Bufang lightly exhaled, and his mental energy instantly spread out. Because this was a delicate task, there couldn't be the slightest mistake. Thus, Bufang released the mental energy hidden in his spirit sea. The second piece of pork was cut off. Bufang's kitchen knife spun rapidly, dazzling and mysterious. It was as though a knife light was flashing. Soon, the second piece of pork was cut off. With a sweep of the knife, the pork was instantly sent flying. The hexagonal piece of pork spun in the air and landed on the base of the meat. It was flat and neat. The gap between the two pieces of meat was less than the size of a fingernail. Picking up another piece of meat, the knife light flashed and the meat was trimmed. The hexagonal piece of pork was placed on top of it. It was still less than the size of a fingernail. In the kitchen, the atmosphere was stifling and dull. Bufang's mental energy spread out, as though everything had turned into a quagmire. Piece after piece of meat was stacked on top of each other. Each piece of meat was quite thin. When the last piece of meat was stacked, a pagoda-shaped meat pagoda was completed. The meat pagoda was hexagonal, incomparably neat. The gap between each piece of meat had a strict requirement. The spirit energy was dense, and the pork was trembling. Bufang looked at it, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. This dish required a lot of energy. However, there was no doubt that just looking at this dish was enough to make one's taste buds soar. Bufang took out a blue and white porcelain plate and used his kitchen knife to cut across the surface of the stove. He lifted the entire piece of treasured pagoda meat and placed it on the porcelain plate. Then, he started to heat the wok. Opening his mouth, a ball of red heaven and earth obsidian flame surged out. The flame burned fiercely, as though it was a mutated heaven and earth obsidian flame. Its temperature was much higher than the 10,000 bestial flames, and there was a unique energy exuding from it. Swish. He took out a jar of Iceheart jade urn wine and opened the lid. Instantly, a rich wine aroma wafted out. He poured some Heaven Alps spirit spring water into the Black Turtle constellation wok and placed the treasured meat pagoda inside. Steam rose from the wok from time to time. The wine aroma lingered. Bufang poured the Iceheart jade urn wine into the wok. Instantly, the wine flowed down from the top of the meat pagoda, covering every piece of meat. The rich wine aroma seeped into the meat. Swish. The meat pagoda that was watered by the Iceheart jade urn wine became crystal clear, as though it was inlaid with a layer of glass. The glass sparkled, and under the light, it emitted a dazzling radiance. With a thought, the mouth of the Black Turtle constellation wok closed, as though it was covered with a lid. However, he was steaming the treasured meat pagoda. During this process, Bufang started to process the other ingredient. He picked up a vermilion spirit fruit. There were many patterns moving on the fruit, and there was even a faint red glow. This was a lantern fruit. It was like a lantern, and the core of the fruit was inedible. The kitchen knife cut horizontally, cutting open the skin of the lantern fruit. He took out the golden core and threw it away. Then, he sliced the lantern fruit and set it aside. He picked up a ball of dark green spirit cauliflower. Bufang held the spirit cauliflower with one hand, and the knife light flickered continuously. He trimmed the spirit cauliflower until it was like a horned dragon. It was like a meticulously carved bonsai. The other ingredients were also carved by him and placed on a plate, ready to be used. He took out a long blue and white porcelain plate and placed the carved spirit cauliflower in a corner. He also scattered the sliced lantern fruit on top of it. Gulp, gulp. After doing all this, Bufang shifted his attention to the Black Turtle constellation wok. He stretched out his hand and placed it on top of the wok. He sent his consciousness into it and felt the flow of spirit energy within the wok. His mental force was like a quiet stream that flowed slowly, controlling the spirit energy to shuttle between the ingredients. In Bufang's perception, the treasured pagoda meat in the Black Turtle constellation wok began to swell at a speed visible to the naked eye after it was cooked. As the meat expanded, the treasured pagoda meat seemed even more majestic and imposing, emitting a domineering aura. This was the domineering aura left behind by Bufang after he used the Overlord 13 blades to cut the meat. The Overlord 13 blades was not only a knife technique used to fight against enemies, but it was also a knife technique used to process the ingredient. In other words, processing the ingredients was the most important, and fighting against enemies was secondary. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, the treasured pagoda meat in the Black Turtle constellation wok was completely cooked. The Heavenly Alps spirit spring water had evaporated completely, and the Iceheart jade urn wine was absorbed by the treasured pagoda meat. This wine was able to remove the peculiar smell from the pork, and at the same time, it perfectly preserved the unique fragrance of the transcendent mortal spirit pig. It was extremely perfect. A thought flashed through his mind. The lid of the Black Turtle constellation wok was slowly opened. In an instant, steaming hot air and a rich fragrance of meat surged out from the Black Turtle constellation wok. The heat wave seemed to transform into a mushroom cloud that surged up and soared to the ceiling. Bufang's hand shook, and the treasured pagoda meat was taken out. After being cooked, the treasured pagoda meat looked even more godly. The hexagonal pagoda body seemed to be coated with colored glass, incomparably exquisite. The meat emitted hot air and fragrance, and there was also a faint wine fragrance, which made it even more attractive. With a sweep of the kitchen knife, the treasured pagoda meat was picked up and placed on the long porcelain plate. After washing it, he added oil and heated the wok. His movements were smooth and swift, and he poured the processed ingredients into the Black Turtle constellation wok. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Steaming hot air surged up, and the fragrance of the ingredients burst forth, stirring up one's appetite. These ingredients were quickly melted by Bufang. They turned into a rich broth, which was golden and incomparably resplendent. Swish! With a shake of the wok, the golden broth was poured into the wok. The broth was poured from the top of the treasured pagoda meat. Swish! It was like the sound of flowing water, with the sizzling sound of hot air. Fragrance, spirit, energy, and heat, the three intertwined endlessly. The treasured pagoda meat was instantly poured into a golden color. The golden glaze was resplendent and majestic, as if it had really turned into a pagoda, shocking one's eyes. The jade-green spirit cauliflower and some other ingredients were arranged on the plate. It was like a beautiful scenery under the pagoda, full of flowers. Sizzle! The wok spatula stirred in the wok, and soon, a milky white broth was cooked. Picking up the black turtle constellation wok, he poured the milky white broth into it. In an instant, the milky white broth occupied the porcelain plate. It was as if it had turned into a small pond with sparkling blue waves. The pond water was clear and white, and the spirit plants beside it were verdant and lush. Dots of color adorned it, and a golden pagoda stood majestically. It was as beautiful as an intoxicating landscape painting. Bufang put down the black turtle constellation wok, took a step back, and lightly exhaled. Treasured pagoda meat. Done. Chapter 699. A picturesque scene, treasured pagoda meat. Bufang wiped off the water stains on his hands and gently exhaled as he looked at the treasured pagoda meat that he had just finished. The golden treasured pagoda meat, under the illumination of the light, emitted a resplendent luster. It was mesmerizing and incomparably dazzling. The milky white broth was separated from the treasured pagoda meat. It was as though a towering pagoda was standing in a pool of water in a towering mountain range. Dense spiritual energy floated up from the spiritual ingredients, and the milky white soup was still emitting a misty steam. The two intertwined, creating a hazy scene, causing the pagoda to be faintly discernible, as if it was standing in a paradise. Bufang's nose moved closer to the plate and took a deep sniff. Instantly, the aroma rushed into his nose and stirred his taste buds, causing his eyebrows to involuntarily twitch. Not bad. Bufang gave a small sigh of admiration. Although he had not tasted it, the meaty fragrance that permeated the air told him that it should be pretty good. Picking up the plate, Bufang walked out of the kitchen. In the restaurant, many people were already sitting upright, chatting and laughing. The fiery sorceress and Xing, the tall and sturdy Yang Meiji, the ice-cold Yu, and the little girl Xiaoya. There was also Blackie, whose paws were dangling on the table. The moment they sensed Bufang walking out of the kitchen, everyone turned their heads and their gazes landed on Bufang. They took in a deep breath. They were all shocked by the dish in Bufang's hands. Was that a dish? Why did it look so cool? The moment they saw it, the golden pagoda seemed to be emitting light, causing everyone's eyes to feel a slight sting. The dish actually shone brightly in their eyes. Unbelievable! The dish, which was like a painting, made everyone stop talking and turn their eyes to it. Bufang wore the vermilion robe, and his hair was tied up with a velvet rope. He slowly walked to the dining table and placed the treasured pagoda meat on the table. The rich meaty fragrance of the treasured pagoda meat permeated the air. The aroma of the dish lingered, stirring one's taste buds. It smells so good. Sorceress and Xing took a deep breath and couldn't help but close her eyes. She enjoyed the fragrance of the meat flowing through her nose. Yang Meiji craned her neck and couldn't help but sniff. Xiaoya and Yu were almost drooling. Just looking at the appearance of the dish was enough to whet their appetites. Let's have a taste of this dish. Bufang pulled a chair over and sat down as he said to everyone. He took out plates and chopsticks and placed them in front of everyone. He spun the dragon bone kitchen knife and waved it casually. The overbearing blade energy within the kitchen knife surged out, and with a resounding clang, It landed on the treasured pagoda meat. Immediately, the treasured pagoda meat fell apart, and each piece of meat flew towards everyone's plate, landing on their own plate. Try it. Bufang also picked up a piece of treasured pagoda meat that was as soft as tofu for himself. The treasured pagoda meat was steamed until it was mushy, and it was distributed into everyone's bowl. Even the Lord Go got a piece. He picked up his chopsticks and tapped them on the table. When the two sides were evenly balanced, he picked up the piece of treasured pagoda meat in his own bowl. Once it entered his mouth, the treasured pagoda meat seemed like it was about to melt. The rich fragrance instantly spread in his mouth, flowing smoothly into his mouth. This spirit beast meat. Why is it so soft? Yang Meiji cried out in surprise. After eating a piece of treasured pagoda meat, she felt as though she had undergone a baptism. Even her pores slightly shrank. This was the first time she had tasted such a delicious dish. The spirit beast meat was well processed. It didn't have the fishy smell of meat, and it even had a unique fragrance. Yang Meiji enjoyed the fragrance very much. Good. Delicious. Sorceress and Xing had already stuffed the entire piece of meat into her mouth. She chewed happily, and she almost swallowed her tongue. After she finished eating, she let out a long breath. Her entire being was filled with joy, and her face was flushed red. Her body trembled slightly, and the towering peaks on her chest also trembled along with her trembling. The little girl, Yu, and the Lord Go ate the treasured pagoda meat as if they hadn't eaten at all. Although the taste was very attractive to them, a piece of meat wasn't enough to satisfy them. The chopsticks were quickly pulled out, and pieces of meat were cut off from the treasured pagoda meat, and all of them were eaten. After eating, everyone carefully scooped a spoonful of milky white soup from the porcelain plate. The soup was very fresh, and because it had the fragrance of the Ice Heart Jade Urn wine, it was even more delicious. In short, everyone present was full of praise as they ate. Bufang was also very satisfied in his heart. It seemed like the treasured pagoda meat was a success. There would be one more dish on the menu tomorrow. The corners of Bufang's mouth curled up, and his heart was filled with joy. It had been a long time since his restaurant added a new dish. After finishing the dishes, the others dispersed and left one after another. Yang Meiji returned to her room, while Sorceress and Xing left the restaurant and returned to the Star Tower. During the day, she would practice her culinary skills at Bufang's restaurant, and at night, she would return to the Star Tower to practice her alchemy skills. Recently, Sorceress and Xing's interest in culinary skills had increased, and her alchemy skills had decreased. She had fallen in love with the feeling of cooking. Bufang kept the porcelain plate after he finished eating. Xiao Bai was in a deep sleep, and many of the chores had to be done by Bufang himself. It made him miss the days when Xiao Bai was around. After tidying up everything, the bright moon once again floated in the sky. As for Bufang, he was also having a headache about how to deal with the little girl's accommodation. In the end, he still knocked on Yang Meiji's door and let Xiao Ye sleep with her. Although Yang Meiji looked a little rough, her room was especially gentle and delicate. The air was filled with the fragrance of a kind of spirit flower. Yang Meiji naturally agreed immediately because it was not a difficult matter. Only then did Bufang heave a sigh of relief. He could finally go back to his room to sleep. After arranging the little girl's accommodation, Bufang, on the other hand, returned to his own room, closed the door, and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After putting on his clothes, he leaned against the window and looked at the starry night sky. The night was silent. Valley of Gluttony, a warship sailed in without any scruples, a flag fluttering above it. It was the warship of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land. The old man standing in front of the warship clasped his hands, his hair slowly fluttering in the wind. The old man looked a little strange. His skin was brown and yellow, and there were obscure patterns flashing on his face. Because of the Taoye's attack, The Valley of Gluttony had pushed back the Glutton God's banquet by 3 days, and it had not started yet. Because of the Taotia's interference, this year's Glutton God's banquet was stopped halfway, and everyone had to leave. However, after the announcement that the Glutton God's banquet would resume, many people became excited. After all, the Glutton God's banquet was the grandest banquet in the Valley of Gluttony. Moreover, many elders had participated in this year's Glutton God's banquet. The Glutton God's building square was being repaired. A warship came from outside the Valley of Gluttony, naturally attracting many people's gazes. Many people pointed at the warship in the sky. Suddenly, the warship stopped, no longer moving forward. Below it was the majestic Glutton God City. Swoosh! A figure flew out of the Glutton God City, hovering in the air. Heavenly Spring Holy Land's people? The sixth elder looked at the Heavenly Spring Holy Land's warship, his face slightly grimaced. This group of people from the Holy Land was getting more and more lawless. The old man standing on the bow seemed to see the sixth elder. The corners of his mouth curled, revealing a warm smile. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the warship. Instantly, a terrifying aura filled the entire Valley of Gluttony. The sixth elder's face changed. The aura on his body surged, trying to block that attack. However, he was blown away by the finger. "Ask Chu Chongqing to come out and see me," the old man said calmly. The Heavenly Spring's Saint's son died in your Valley of Gluttony, and the Valley Master isn't here. As the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, of course, you have to come out and give the Heavenly Spring Holy Land an explanation. Moreover, you'd better pray that this explanation can move me. Otherwise today I will flatten the Valley of Gluttony, the old man demanded. Slowly, Chu Chongqing's figure emerged from the Glutton God City. No one knew when he had appeared, but he was already standing on the bow of the warship. His deep eyes looked at the old man from the Holy Land. Chu Chongqing's gaze made the old man's heart shiver. Chu Chongqing wore a loose robe, revealing his domineering figure. You want an explanation? What explanation does the Heavenly Spring Holy Land want? Your saint's son offended me first. I'm already being merciful by not killing him on the spot, said Chu Chongqing. The old man's eyes narrowed. Looking at Chu Chongqing, the corners of his mouth rose. Chu Chongqing is indeed Chu Chongqing. You have guts. I heard that you even suppressed the Heavenly Spring Saint's son. You don't give the Heavenly Spring Holy Land any face, said the old man. The old man said. There was an oppressive aura emanating from his body, slowly spreading out. It was extremely terrifying. This was an expert, and he shouldn't be ordinary at all. In the distance, the elders of the Holy Lands were waiting to watch a good show. They belonged to different Holy Lands. Seeing the Heavenly Spring Holy Land take the lead, they were naturally excited. If you want to fight, hurry up. Chu Chongqing's body suddenly bulged. The muscles on his upper body were like dragons, tearing his clothes apart. His entire body seemed to have become more muscular. Without another word, Chu Chongqing stomped on the ground. A golden bowl whizzed out. He caught it in his hand and threw it out. The golden bowl whistled, turning into a golden radiant. It flew toward the experts of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land in the sky. A tiger's roar resounded. Behind the old man on the Heavenly Spring Holy Land's warship, a big multicolored tiger emerged. His eyes bloomed with radiance. The six-step soul ladder was condensed, and dazzling stars shone on it. Instantly, he and Chu Chongqing began to fight. Valley of Gluttony, in front of the Glutton God City, a giant hole with a diameter of more than 10 meters appeared, with jagged rocks everywhere. Blood splashed in the center of the hole. Chu Chongqing's entire body was steaming. The marks on his body slowly disappeared. Looking at the warship of the Heavenly Spring Holy Land in the sky, he opened his mouth, and white smoke spurted out. Damn it! I can't drag it out any longer. I have to bring that little girl back. The inheritance needs to be inherited. Otherwise, the Valley of Gluttony will be slowly devoured by those damn bastards. Chu Changsheng's aura descended. There was a big, bloody hole in his chest. Blood slowly dripped, but Chu Changsheng was still gazing at the warship, contemplating. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.